This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Here's Lady Eli, charging on the far outside. Antono sneaks through an opening at the fence. Ghidorah's fighting hard. Lady Eli comes at her from the outside. Antono comes at her from the rail. The three of them battle it out to the wire in the Diana. Here's the finish. It is the dauntless Lady Eli. Red Rifle, who saved all the ground, just squeezes on through. War Dancer is there on the outside and imagining Red Rifle. Red Rifle is in front, close to home. And what a brilliant ride by Javier Castellano. Red Rifle wins the Bowling Green.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Totally Boss is fourth and putting in a bid on the far outside, but still World of Trouble there with Dirty. These two are 1-2. Outside of them, Fig Jelly. Totally Boss is fourth as World of Trouble just keeps on going. World of Trouble will win the quick call.
And here is Caribbean Sunset, who comes bursting on through to take the lead. And Forever Together coming with giant strides, and there she is to win the Diana again. Forever Together.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, welcoming you to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. This, the show that launched a network, and it is right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Happy to have you back in the saddle with me for the next 3 hours on Sirius 162, XM 207, our affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Well, if you're the type of racing fan who looks forward to greatest stakes every weekend, then Saratoga is where your attention is going to lie this afternoon. The only graded stakes on the North American racing calendar this weekend will be run at the Spa. You have the Grade 2 Bowling Green, the Grade 1 Diana later today, and the Grade 3 Quick Call on the docket for tomorrow. The Diana features She Feels Pretty, the even money morning line favorite, and she is regarded by many as the leader in this filly and mare turf division. But this is no easy spot. I know it's a short field, but it's no easy spot. She has to tackle a pair of Chad Brown runners, and Chad has absolutely dominated the Diana, and that's probably the understatement of the entire show, maybe the entire year. Chad's looking for his 10th win in this race. He's won 8 out of the last 9. Think about that. 8 out of the last 9 runnings of this Grade 1 race have gone to horses trained by Chad Brown. That is a dynasty. That is domination. But She Feels Pretty. She's good. She'll have to be good this afternoon because Chad's formidable. Looking forward to that one. Looking forward to the Bowling Green with Far Bridge. He's the morning line favorite in there for trainer Miguel Clement. It would be an emotional victory for him. This is a horse that was near and dear to his dad's heart. And now with Miguel taking over the reins of this operation, he would love nothing more than to see Bowling Green win a Grade 2 at Saratoga. And that leads us into our poll question this morning. Which morning line favorite will deliver a winning performance today at Saratoga? Is it Far Bridge in the Bowling Green? Is it She Feels Pretty in the Diana? Or do you think that both of those horses will win? Or do you think neither will win? Keep in mind, it is the graveyard of favorites. So that is a distinct possibility. Which morning line favorite will deliver a winning performance today at Saratoga? Is it Far Bridge? Is it She Feels Pretty? Both will win. Neither will win. Those are the 4 choices. You can go to @HRRN on X to cast your vote there. If you do Facebook, you can go to Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook and let us know your thoughts on this poll question. And if you don't do social media, email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know your thoughts. Listen, She Feels Pretty has been just sensational throughout this campaign so far. If you count what she did last year at the end of the season, winning the QE2 at Keeneland, that's a Grade 1. Winning the American Oaks at Santa Anita, that's a Grade 1. And then you pair up the Modesty, which was a return race here in 2025, with the Grade 1 New York Stakes, which she won last time out at Saratoga. on a course that she really didn't handle all that well, didn't look comfortable over, but she found a way to gut it out and get it done. She's now won 4 consecutive races, 3 of those grade 1s. She's the horse to beat. But again, when you got a guy like Chad Brown in here and his horses that are rock solid, Excellent Truth, Dynamic Pricing, those are the 1-2 finishers from the Just a Game last time out at Saratoga. Dynamic Pricing getting the better of Excellent Truth that day. Chad's going to join me later in the show. You'll hear from him coming up right around 9:40 Eastern. So we go down the road to the Breeders' Cup. The Diana, not a Breeders' Cup winning you're in this season. But make no mistake, the horses you're going to see in the Diana are going to be pointed for that filly and mare turf. But it's not only the Chad Brown runners that She Feels Pretty has to hold off. That's probably where your focus is going to be. But you have Simon Crisford with Choicia, who comes into this race off of a 7th place finish in the Just a Game behind the 2 Chad Brown runners I just mentioned. Well, she's got some credentials too. She's a grade 1 winner, taking the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland last April. And by the way, she beat Excellent Truth in that race. So she's very dangerous. And Chad, I promise you, he's aware of that. Safi Joseph Jr. sends out Be Your Best in the Diana, ridden by Erod Ortiz Jr. Winner of the Grade 1 Gamely at Santa Anita last time out. She has early speed. If she gets loose, could be tough to catch. And there really isn't a lot of other speed that's going to run with Be Your Best. I see her as a lone speed in here, and that is always dangerous. And now that she's proven that she belongs at this level with that Grade 1 win last time out, you better think that Be Your Best is dangerous in the spot later today. And she gets the cozy outside draw, post number 6. Won't be pressured from the outside as she breaks well. And again, she has the man, Erod Ortiz Jr. in the irons. He knows exactly what to do on this turf course. So not an easy assignment for She Feels Pretty, but neither was the Grade 1 New York last time out. She found a way to get it done. She showed a ton of heart. And what do they say in sports? You can't teach heart. Post time for the Diana, 6:14 Eastern. Again, the Bowling Green earlier in the program. That's race number 8 at 4:29 Eastern time. The lone graded stakes on the docket later today. Trainer Jorge Abreu is going to be with me in just a few minutes, right around 8:15 Eastern time. He saddled the winner of the very first race of the 2025 Saratoga meet on Thursday. Aka Ira got the victory in race number 1 at Saratoga Thursday afternoon. He'll talk about what that means. It's always kind of a special thing. Naira sends out a press release about it every year. It's always kind of a big deal. Well, plus, now Jorge Abreu doesn't have to worry about getting off the schneid, right? He's off the duck, as they say, with his victory in that first race. And in case you're wondering, through the first couple of days of the Saratoga meet, the trainer standings are topped by Cherie DeVoe, trainer of She Feels Pretty, by the way, and George Weaver, both of those trainers saddling 2 winners so far. Interestingly, Chad Brown, who's only had a couple of runners so far at the meet, has yet to get on the board. And I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that Chad Brown is the trainer to beat again this year at Saratoga. He's going to run more horses. He has more quality horses, a lot of firepower. It would be an upset for anybody to top Chad Brown this year. He's going to talk about that later in the show. Again, 9:40 Eastern. But so far, 0 for 2. On the jockey side of things, it's Jose Ortiz with 4 victories. His brother Erod right behind him with 3, as is Flavian Pratt with 3. And I think when you look at the way this all may shake out, most people expecting it will be Erod Ortiz, Flavian Pratt dueling it out to the wire. But right now, Jose, the man on top of the standings, 4 for 10. He's riding really, really well. You heard from him last week on this show. He's riding extremely well, and good to see him back on top of his game. So here's the lineup for you this morning. You got Jorge Abreu coming up in just a few minutes. Mike Beer of the Daily Racing Forum. Mike and David Aragona put together videos on the DRF YouTube page, and they talked about different aspects of betting Saratoga, and they looked at different trends when it comes to jockeys and trainers and handicapping. Well, Mike's going to walk through some of those for you coming up at 8:35. That's a segment you won't want to miss if you're going to be playing the races at the Spa this summer. You're going to hear from Chad Brown again at 9:40. And before we get to that point, at the top of hour 2, 9 o'clock Eastern, I'll be joined by Sovereign Award-winning writer Jennifer Morrison, who is going to talk about Canadian Horse of the Year, Patches O'Houlihan. Sad news coming out of our friends at Woodbine, north of the border, this past week when it was announced that Patches O'Houlihan had been euthanized following an injury he sustained in winning the Highlander on June 28th. As he was galloping out, they did everything they could, unable to save Patches O'Houlihan, the reigning Canadian Horse of the Year. So Jennifer will be here at 9 Eastern to remember Patches and talk about his brilliant career. 10 o'clock Eastern begins hour number 3. It kicks off with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Vance Hanson will join me to give you 3 races to watch later today. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20. A good story today about the 1929 Kentucky Derby winner, Clyde Van Dusen. You won't want to miss that one. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer. Dale and Tim join me for that segment to tackle some of the hottest topics in the sport today. We'll see if Dale likes the topics I've chosen this morning. That's always a crapshoot, whether or not Dale's going to like some of the ones I come up with. But you'll hear from them coming up at 10:30. So all kinds of things to get to here this morning. But time now to check in with our producer, Lee Delapina, as he provides this week's impossible trivia question. Lee?
All right, thanks, Mike. Now, this is a hard one. Maybe not impossible. You could figure it out. This Hall of Fame jockey holds the distinction of being the only rider to win the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, and Belmont Stakes on 3 different horses in 3 different years. Who is he? No Googling. We'll give out the answer at the end of the show.
I hope you get it right. Good one for you here this morning. The answer comes your way, as Lee said, at the end of the show, right around 10:55 Eastern Time. All right, lots to get to on this Saturday morning. When I come back, I welcome trainer Jorge Abreu to the program. We'll talk about winning that first race of the Saratoga meet on Thursday and what that means to him and to his team. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Live racing for the 25-day Ellis Park meeting begins Thursday, July 3rd and runs through Saturday, August 24th, with a record $4 million in stakes purses led by 7 stakes across Kentucky Downs Preview Weekend on August 2nd and 3rd, and 6 stakes on Sunday, August 10th, featuring the $300,000 Ellis Park Derby and the $200,000 Groupie Doll. Connections with Kentucky-bred horses will be competing for $100,000 maiden special weight purses and allowances up to $108,000, and horse players will have plenty of action throughout the summer. For a full list of events, visit EllisParkOwensboroGaming.com.
In the heat of competition, every breath matters. Flair Equine nasal strips are clinically proven to reduce airway resistance. By protecting their lungs, you can reduce the risk of EIPH, quicken recovery, and optimize performance. Make a difference in every race and every stride with the product backed by science and trusted by top trainers. Trust Flair for every horse, every breath. Learn the science at FlairStrips.com. That's FlairStrips.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Asaida takes third as they reach the top of the stretch. And it's Sweet Anniversary in charge, has a 3-length lead. Royal Bobby trying her best. Asaida swings into the center of the racetrack and is coming with purpose after Sweet Anniversary. Here's Asaida eating up ground with each and every stride under Flavian Pratt. And Asaida has wrested the lead away. All is well for Asaida, who wins the opener. Photo per second, Sweet Anniversary, and Royal Bobby, and Purpose checked in fourth.
Frank Miramati with the call. Asaida with the victory in race number 1 at Saratoga on Thursday, the opener for the 2025 meet. That is always a very special win for any owner, any trainer. It helps when you don't have to worry about the pressure building of trying to saddle a winner at Saratoga, but Jorge Abreu does not after saddling Asaida to the victory on Thursday. The native of the Dominican Republic set to join me here coming up shortly. He'll talk about what that meant. Now, Jorge has worked for some prominent trainers over the course of his career. Came to the United States in 1984 when he was just 9 years old, and he steadily kind of worked his way up the ladder, and he finally went out on his own in 2016, but he worked for guys like Billy Badgett and John Terranova, Nick Zito, the Hall of Famer, and that was when Nick really had it rolling. He had Bellamy Road, Sun King, horses like that. So he's learned from some of the best. He spent some time with Chad Brown as well. So he knows what it takes to win races on the big stage, and certainly at Saratoga. So we are efforting Jorge Abreu at this time and looking forward to that visit in just a few minutes. As I mentioned, Mike Beer set to join us in the next segment. Mike of the Daily Racing Form. You've heard him on this program in the past, too. He did a lot of shows with us a few years back. He's a really sharp guy. And he was joined by another sharp guy in David Aragona. And the two of them looked at so many different statistics as they relate to jockeys and trainers and handicapping at Saratoga. And Saratoga is such a unique animal, isn't it? When you're talking about handicapping Saratoga, I think it is one of the more challenging meets to handicap. Because you have everybody points for that meet, right? It's kind of like Keeneland. Everybody loves to win a race at Keeneland. You love to win in front of the home team, and Keeneland certainly is that with all the breeders in Lexington, Kentucky. Saratoga is the same way. Everybody wants to win at Del Mar. If you're on the West Coast, you want to win a race at Del Mar. So you get horses coming from all over the country to Saratoga. They all bring, for the most part, pretty solid form, or you wouldn't be there. And it makes it challenging from a handicapping perspective. You know, how do horses that ran in Kentucky compare to horses that have been running in New York all year? And I guess you could say this about a lot of meets, right, where horses ship in from different parts of the country. But Saratoga just seems like a different animal to me. Always has been. The racing product, really tough. But that's what also makes Saratoga special. And then you throw in the graveyard of favorites and you start looking for value, which you should do in any race anyway. And it makes things interesting. Jorge Abreu going to join us in just a few minutes. He's going to call into the show here, so we're looking forward to that visit, again, coming up momentarily. Chad Brown, 9:40 Eastern. If you missed it at the top of the show when I gave out the poll question, here it is for you. Which morning line favorite will deliver a winning performance today at Saratoga? Is it Farbridge in the Bowling Green? Is it She Feels Pretty in the Diana? Or do you think that both of them will win? That's another choice. Or you can choose neither will win. The graveyard of favorites will take its toll on both of those runners. Which way are you going to go there? You can go to @HRRN on X, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show. If you don't do social media, trust me, I get it. Go to mike@horseracingradio.net. That's the email address to get into the show, and you can let me know your thoughts on that question. Jorge Abreu is with me now. I mentioned his extensive resume. He's worked for some of the best, and now he has it rolling as he takes the first race of the 2025 Saratoga meet on Thursday. He's with me now. Jorge, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well, my friend. Congrats on that win. I know it wasn't a stakes race, but when you win the first race at Saratoga, there's something special about that.
It is, and this filly looks like she's getting better every race. She's running a better number.
Yeah, she continues to improve, doesn't she?
Correct.
What was it like for you standing in the winner's circle after that win?
Oh, it's a big relief when you win the first race of the meet. You get that race out of your way. I mean, you don't have that pressure of now winning in the meet. Very important to win a race in Saratoga.
Yeah, and of course you win the first one. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jorge, but I said earlier that there's a mystique about Saratoga, and there's something special about winning the very first race of the meet every year.
It is, because like I say, it gets you all the pressure from winning at the meet. It's good for the help. It's good for the owner. It's good for everybody at the barn. So it's like a big relief you get when you win your first race, especially the first race of the meet.
You know, I mentioned, Jorge, that you've been around some of the top names in the sport, guys like John Terranova, Nick Zito, Chad Brown. So you're no stranger to being around good horses. What's it take? What type of horse does it take to win at Saratoga?
Well, really, you need a really good horse or a decent horse. You know, Saratoga, you're against the best all the time. When you're in a clean race, you're running against the best.
And then you have to contend with that Chad Brown guy, too, and you have to try to beat him now.
That's right. You have to compete against him. Cherie, they has a lot of nice horses, Tab Fletcher. So, for me, you know, every time I win, for me, it's a thrill here. And a very good accomplishment, because I don't have the type of horses that they have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How many horses do you have, Jorge?
Right now, I have 50.
Oh, it's a good number, right?
Yes, it's a good number.
Would you like to have more?
I don't want to get too big. I think 50, 60, no more than that is a good management number.
Yeah. What is it that makes trainers like Chad Brown and Cherie, who is really doing well now, Todd Pletcher, as you mentioned, what makes those trainers so good?
Well, you know, they have a good quality of horses, and their work shows in the afternoon when they participate. So that's the main thing. You have to show, not even just having the horses, because it doesn't mean if you have a good horse and you're not running any good or winning races, you know, it doesn't mean anything. But when you show that your work, that the work you do in the morning shows up in the afternoon, and it's all about the client. It's all about the horse, really, in this business.
What things did you take away from guys like Nick Zito and Chad Brown that help you today?
Well, you know, being around Chad and Nick Zito, you work with so many different horses and so many caliber of horses. You work from the stake horse, allowance horse, maiden horse, claiming horse. So each horse is individual. You have to train him, you know, differently.
All right, so your horse that won the first race, how did you train Asaira?
When I didn't have a lot of high hope about her starting, she was a little late blooming, you know. First few starts, she ran for a tag. Then she broke her maiden going long. I put her in the A other, then she finished third, and Pratt came back and told me probably I gave her a little too much to do. And I said, for this race, I said, well, you use your judgment, you know. I'm not going to tell you how to ride your race. You know her now. And I think he rode a perfect race. And like I said, she's just getting better every time she runs. She just steps it up a little bit better and better.
You know, you talk about treating every horse as an individual. Can that be hard to do?
Well, the horse will walk you through it some of the time, you know. Like when you breathe and you know exactly where you at with them, how they train in the morning, how they move, how much ability do they have, and then you have a better idea when you're doing your set list and stuff like that.
You don't have anything running today, but you have one in tomorrow in an allowance race, race number 7 on the inner turf, Lil Lang. Tell me a little bit more about that horse.
That horse is doing good. That horse, I like him since they moved him to me. We ran him for a tag when he broke his maiden, and then I told the owner, you know, I don't want to keep running him for a tag because I know that horse has some ability because he trains like a horse that wants to do it in the morning. And he's been good to me. We gave him the winter off. He came back. He ran a third. And I feel confident with him tomorrow, stretching him out in a mile and having Pratt on his back again.
Yeah, Flavian, just as good as it gets, certainly. How about your runner on Wednesday in the Susie O'Kane Stakes, K-Cup? What can you tell me about K-Cup?
That's another fielder that's training very, very good. and she's not a turf horse, so I main track only for that race, and it looked like it's gonna rain. So if it comes off the turf, she's gonna be tough to beat because I feel it keep improving. Every time she runs, she just gets better and better.
Jorge, I love the confidence in your voice when you talk about these horses. You can feel your enthusiasm. How about on Thursday in the Rick Violet Stakes? That's a special race there at Saratoga. Race number 3 Thursday. Smooth Breeze is your horse in there.
I love that horse. That horse is a pretty nice horse. Last time I had to leave him in the main track only because I ran him, and there was a couple of months I had him in the Penn Mile. They canceled the Penn Mile, and I told the owner, at this point, I don't want to keep breathing the horse. So he said, if you feel comfortable, just run him. And he ran a good second on the dirt. But I feel pretty confident now on Thursday with this horse. He's training very, very well.
Jorge Abreu with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Jorge, I mentioned earlier as we were waiting on the connection that you grew up in the Dominican Republic, but you came to the United States in 1984 when you were just 9 years old. Did you always have your heart set on being part of thoroughbred racing?
It's funny, not really, because back home I never went to the track, and my dad used to be one of the top jockeys in the Dominican Republic. When we came to the United States, he started bringing us, me and my brother Fernando and Ronaldo, to the track with him every Saturday and Sunday. And then I kind of started feeling about the horses, and here I am, 30 years later.
It's funny the way that all works out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, listen, Jorge, your story is fantastic. I know you've learned from some of the best, and I want to wish you continued success for the rest of the Saratoga meet, my friend.
Thank you so much.
All right, congrats on that win.
Bye-bye, thanks.
Jorge Abreu, you talked about his brother, Fernando Abreu, who is also a trainer, and he's joined me on Trainer Talk in the past. You can go back to our website, Google that one, Fernando Abreu, listen to his brother's conversation. But Jorge, he really does have it rolling. You heard him say, about 50 horses. That's a good number for him. Doesn't want to get too big. And a lot of trainers are like that. We see trainers like Chad Brown and Nick, and, Nick when he was in his heyday. Todd Pletcher, right? Steve Asmussen. They have so many horses, and every time I ask them the question about, hey, how do you keep track of all of these horses all over the country? You can't be there every day to put your hands on them like a guy like Jorge Abreu can. And they all tell you got to have good assistants. That's the key. My thanks to Jorge for being with me here this morning and taking a look back at that victory on Thursday and then looking ahead to some of his horses coming up next week. All right, when I return, we're going to flip it around. We're going to talk about the handicapping side of Saratoga. Mike Beer of the Daily Racing Form put together a series of videos on the DRF YouTube page. You can go watch all of them, but he talked about several aspects of those videos and his approach to handicapping Saratoga, what he sees in some of the jockey and trainer trends, and so much more. That conversation comes up next, right after your Legends of the Turf and this short commercial break.
This man, during his lifetime of nearly 90 years, was synonymous with the thoroughbred racing as best as anybody could portray it. He was born in Fredericksburg, Texas, July 30th, 1880. That was the year the Great Hindu was a 2-year-old, and a horse named Fanso won the Kentucky Derby over 4 rivals to earn $3,800. Our subject ran away from home at the age of 13 to become a jockey. He started as an exercise boy but wore silks in a race at the age of 14. That was long before he became a licensed jockey, although he had ridden at the age of 10 at wild county fairs in Texas. He never felt he was a good rider, but he had 1,117 recorded mounts and scored with 123 winners, a few of those against the likes of Immortals, Todd Sloan, and Snapper Garrison. He got too heavy to ride by the time he was 19, and therefore he opted for training to get his license at the age of 20 in 1900. He saddled his first winner in 1902, a horse named Guatama at New Orleans on March 21st. Between 1902 and 1969, he saddled 1,993 winners, including the winners of more than 100 major stakes. His last winner was a 4-year-old filly named Heartland, who won Aqueduct's feature by about 8 hours before he died on April 3rd, 1969. His first stakes winner was Beauclair, who took the Washington Cup at Bennings Racecourse near Washington, D.C. in 1907. He went on to train 3 Kentucky Derby winners and 1 Triple Crown winner. The latter was the great clubfoot comet Assault in 1946 in the brown and cream silks of the King Ranch. He saddled Bull Venture to win the 1936 Derby at 20-1 and another winner for the King Ranch Middle Ground in 1950. He had a rather unorthodox method of training horses, to say the least. Most trainers would not dare use an apprentice rider in a classic race. This man did it twice in the Derby, and he won both of them. In 1936, when Ira Hanford on Bull Venture daringly fought through very tight quarters to score by a head over Brevity, and in 1950, when then 16-year-old Bill Boulin kept his mount on the rail to save ground the whole trip. He often said the best horse he had ever trained was Grey Lag, and he went on to say that Grey Lag may have been the singular best he had ever seen. He had bought him as a 2-year-old from the Wizard of the Turf, John E. Madden, and raced him until 3 when Harry Sinclair bought him for $60,000, an unheard-of price at the time. Grey Lag raced for Sinclair and then ran Coca's stable from then on. He was reluctant to use superlatives, but he did feel his best horses besides Grey Lag were Saracen and Assault. His greatest loss was not Grey Lag, it was Stymie, who earned nearly $1 million after being claimed for $1,500. He liked to bet on horses and at one time said, quote, "People who like horses like to bet on them. People who don't bet on them don't belong at the racetrack," end of quote. He was elected to the Racing Hall of Fame in 1959 and was honored by the Thoroughbred Club of America in 1961. Even after a heart attack in 1961, he went on to be leading money-winning trainer in New York. At the age of 87 in 1968, he won 49 races, and that year he trained Gallon Bloom, who was juvenile title holder of that year. He was stoop-shouldered, walked with a bit of a shuffle, with his hand always thrust forward as if something of extraordinary interest was to occur just in front of him. This truly great trainer went shuffling off, so to speak, to the great paddock in the sky, April 3rd, 1969, as an octogenarian at the age of 88. He was the man from Texas, Max Hirsch.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
Attention horsemen, did you know Virginia restricted purses at Colonial Downs are 25% higher than open races? 25%! Virginia bred, Virginia sired, and Virginia certified horses compete for a purse of more than $87,000 for Virginia restricted maidens and $90,000 for Virginia restricted one other than allowance races, with more bonuses available to Virginia certified developers. With the return of the Virginia-Maryland circuit, it makes more sense than ever to get Virginia certified.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They're at the top of the stretch, and Moplex has a 2.5-length lead. Mr. Squeaky Wheels in second, chasing with determination, trying to close the gap. And 3 Echoes is also with a nice late kick in the center of the track. Studley, Do Right, final furlong. Moplex clinging to the lead and keeps on going. And it is Moplex, the New York bred, to win the Sanford. Studley, Do Right rallied strongly into second. Then it was 3 Echoes third, and Mr. Squeaky Wheels ran fourth.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Frank Miramati with the call of last year's Sanford at Saratoga. Mo Plex getting the victory under jockey Erod Ortiz Jr., who has, to say the least, been a handful for the other jockeys in recent years at the Spa. But is he the best value play when it comes to betting on jockeys? That is one of the questions that Mike Beer and David Aragona answered with the Daily Racing Forum videos that they created, looking at some of the trends and giving you some tips to wager at Saratoga and the proper way to go about it. You can find all of those videos on the DRF YouTube page. But for now, we're going to focus on a couple of different angles, and Mike is with me now. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. It's been a while since I got to talk to you. I'm happy to be back on the show here.
Yeah, great to hear your voice. And I really enjoyed watching these videos. There was so much information in there. And I actually had to go back and watch the jockey trainer trends. I had to watch that video twice because there's so much in there.
Yeah, listen, there's of course, there's so much information that's way more readily available to players now than there ever has been before. And so, you know, in some ways, you got to try to find a way to parse it down and, you know, use what's important to you and what's not, and maybe try to filter out some of the stuff. But, yeah, I mean, there's so much information. Real tip of the cap here, though, as far as the stats that we, you know, displayed in those videos that we did, tip of the cap to David Aragona, though. He's the one who really dug in to these stats using DRS formulator for the most part, and, you know, just sort of found stuff that he found interesting that we could then, you know, take on tape and rip on a little bit.
Yeah, he did a great job with them, too. Let's start with the jockey side of things, because we just heard the call of Erod Ortiz Jr. winning one of his several races that led him to a leading jockey title again last year at Saratoga. Is Erod Ortiz Jr. a good value play, considering he wins so many races?
I mean, he certainly hasn't been. I don't think he was called a value play. That definitely wouldn't apply, and that was one of the more glaring points of information in the video we did about the top Saratoga jockeys. Irad is going to win a ton of races up here over the 40 days of this meet, but his horses get bet, and this is nothing new. It doesn't only happen in Saratoga. It happens downstate as well. The guy is one of the best riders in the world, so he attracts a lot of attention. When he's named on a horse, that horse gets bet. They win a lot. But they're often underlays, and you can see just over the last, I think it's 5 meets that David pulled, his ROI for all of his mounts. They win, but the ROI is $1.15. And so if you're betting them all, you're not really doing a good job of getting value for your money. The guy's a great rider, but his horses take a ton of money.
Who are some of the jockeys that bettors might focus on if they're looking to get more bang for their buck?
Yeah, you know, I'll preface this by just saying, you know, personally, and horse players, when you're going through this, again, there's so much information. You have to decide what you want to pay attention to, what you want to focus on, and what you think is most important. Personally speaking, from the way that I like to look at races, and I'm just, you know, speaking for myself here, I really don't care who's riding the horses that I bet on. Jockeys mean very little to me. I know who the good ones are. So does just about everybody else who's paying attention. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, oh, I love to bet when this guy's riding, or I love to bet when that guy's riding, because it's just not the case for me. I don't care who's riding the horses. If I like the horse, the jockeys are relevant to me. But the guys, as far as the stats go, for the videos that we pulled up, and I would encourage everybody to go and pull them up on YouTube and sort of take a look, and the stats are right there on the screen for everybody to look at. Dylan Davis is a guy who's he's getting better all the time. And you're still able to get prices on his horses. He is in bigger stables now. He's riding basically first call for Clement. He's in the Chad Brown barn now, starting to get mounts for him. So his ROI is really good right now. It's going to start to go down because he's going to start riding better horses. But right now, you can get value on him. Jose Lezcano was a big point of reference for us. You know, he's another guy. He's not in the top barns, but he's been around for a long time. He's a total pro, and he's great on the grass. Jose Lezcano rides the turf courses as well as anybody does, and he's not riding for big-name stables, so his horses generally will offer some value. He's got a huge ROI riding on the Saratoga turf over the last 5 years. You could just bet his mounts blind, and you're making money.
You know, one of the things that you and David got into in that particular video that we're talking about, and again, you can go to the Daily Racing Forum YouTube page to watch all of these videos. But Mike, one of the things that really struck me, you took a look at the Belmont Meet top jockeys, and the guy with the highest ROI, this blew me away, was Hall of Famer John Velasquez. You can get great value with Johnny V. At least you could at the Belmont Meet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That was one of the most surprising stats that we put up there as well. And, Johnny, listen, everybody knows who Johnny is. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason. He can still ride, man. He's up there now, and he won't take as many mounts as, Irad or Flavian Pratt or any of those guys. He's not going to ride as many horses as they are. But that guy still gets it done, man. I think David was pointing out, too, he did most of that, the big ROI there came, those 4 days of the July 4th. Yeah, they're counted in those Belmont stats for some reason, and he had a pretty big weekend there with some big price winners. But still, Johnny's great, man. Maybe the best of all time when all is said and done. And the guy can still get the job done.
Do you think bettors tend to overlook him now? Because of the fact that you do have a guy like Irad Ortiz out there and Flavian Pratt and even Jose Ortiz, for example. Do you think Johnny V kind of gets lost in the shuffle sometimes?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that he's, sort of been overshadowed now by the younger guys. And again, he's not going to ride as many horses as they are anymore. So yeah, he's definitely been overshadowed. It really does feel like these days, and maybe part of this is because, Irad, it's always been up here for at least for the last, 10 years or so. It was the Ortiz brothers, right? It was Irad and Jose, and they were pretty much 1-2 in the standings every meet. Now it's Flavian Pratt. He sort of crashed that party on them. And because Jose Ortiz isn't really riding full year in New York anymore, he's really concentrated more on Fairgrounds, Kentucky, those kinds of meets, but he's here for Saratoga. So, maybe he's sort of dropped down the list a little bit as well, but he's gonna ride a ton of winners up here at Saratoga. Irad and Flavian are going to dominate the standings here because they're just going to ride all the best horses. And, they're the two guys who deservedly so. They draw all the attention. They ride the best horses.
How about on the trainer side of things? Anything in particular stand out to you there?
Yeah, I don't know about as far as, just the stats that we put up. I don't think there's anything that surprising on there because, again, the trainer, as far as, the trainer colonies go, it's so top heavy as far as, the real good horses go. And listen, Chad Brown is going to win the trainer title again because he's just loaded for bear up here. It seems like Fletcher's dropped off a little bit. I don't know. His stakes program, hasn't been as strong in the last year or two as it has been, in years past. And certainly his 2-year-olds aren't they were used to be automatic up here. And he really doesn't seem like he's training them to win first out anymore. So, it was always a head-and-head battle up here for the trainer title between Brown and Fletcher. And now it's just basically Brown. He's just going to win the trainer title just about every year up here. But, so you have to reckon with guys like him. Bill Mott's going to win a ton of races up here. Brad Cox, he won't run as many as Chad and maybe Todd will, but his horses are going to win a ton of races up here. So I don't think there's any, real surprises as far as the trainers go. My take on trainers has always been, Mike, I don't know, maybe you agree with this, maybe you don't. Everybody has a different opinion, and there's, obviously more than one way to look at this stuff. But there are so many guys. They might not have the firepower of Brown and Asmussen and Mott and Fletcher, all those guys. There are so many guys who know what they're doing. And if they'll spot their horses right, and they will win, and you'll be able to get prices on those guys. So I'm always way more interested in trainers like that. But, look, again, you know who's going to win most of the races up here. Your job is to find the guys who are going to maybe not win as many, but are going to have well-meant horses at prices.
You know what's stood out to me, Mike, was the graphic that you guys put up in that video where it showed the ROI of all the different trainers that are going to be represented at Saratoga. Chad Brown, who you mentioned, is going to be the leading trainer. I think very few people would argue that. He is going to be very tough to dethrone, if you will. He has a surprisingly solid ROI, considering that he is so prolific at that meet.
Yeah, it's very true. It's amazing that you're able actually to still get price on him. I think, and that's another thing that did come up during the video too, is one of the things you always have to remember with Chad is he's not just running one horse in a race. I mean, for the most part, he's going to have 2 or even 3 in the same race. And so I think one thing that really boosts his ROI, it'd be nice to do actually a deeper dive study on this. I wonder if somebody should actually, maybe pull all of the races that Chad's run over the last however many years with more than one horse in the race. And then just see, because you get a lot of Chad Browns where there's 2 or 3, and the longer or the longest price will wind up winning that race. And that certainly helps boost his ROI, because he'll get a winner at a good price while he's also had 2 other horses in the race that maybe lost as the favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a really interesting study. And again, Mike Beer joining me here from the Daily Racing Forum. We're looking at some of the trends on the jockey and trainer side. You threw out the name Al Stall Jr. as a guy that you will watch when he brings horses to Saratoga. He's one. Are there any others?
Yeah, there's actually, there's quite a few of them. Al Stall is just one of those guys who will come up from Kentucky and he won't bring a bunch. Maybe he'll run a handful of horses up here, but it's just, he's been around for so long, and I have to go back, 10, 15 years with Al Stall. I just remember him showing up with live horses in Saratoga over and over again.
Yeah.
His horses are always really well meant. Another guy who won't run a ton up here, but Eddie Keneally will come up from Kentucky with horses, especially. He's really good with 2-year-olds. And when he shows up with a 2-year-old to run in a stakes race at Saratoga, they're super live usually, and they won't draw, that much attention. So those are 2 guys I always look for. Phil Bauer, just over the last, 2 or 3 years, has been, I don't know, man, almost automatic at Saratoga. He's just winning tons of races. The ROI is still good because he's not a household name. He doesn't have a ton of horses, but Phil Bauer knows what he's doing, and so he'll come up here with live horses. It's guys like that. There are a lot of them, though, Mike. I mean, to me, one of the most interesting things about last year's meet, and it's probably not going to continue because there's another guy who is a name now and his stock just keeps getting better, is Saffie Joseph. I mean, he was a guy who a couple years ago, going back 2, 3, 4, 5 years, he couldn't win. Couldn't really win races up here. Last year, he had sort of a breakout meet. He had a huge meet up here in Saratoga last year with a bunch of winners at prices. So it'll be interesting to see if he can keep it going.
One of the other videos in this series, the series of videos is called Winning at the Spa. One of the other ones, Mike, is tips for betting Saratoga. And you and David spent some time sharing your thoughts on a couple of things that you think will help people as they prepare to bet Saratoga. So what are a couple of those tips that you would focus on?
Yeah, it's hard. That's one of the things that I think you have to try to talk about more in general terms than in specific terms, because again, everybody, there are a lot of different ways to win, and people like to play. There are so many different kinds of bets now, Mike, that, you can focus on any one of those or a variety of those to try to make money. And, not everybody's going to play it the same way. The great thing to me about Saratoga, especially when you're following New York racing year round, is you sort of get some new blood in these races. It really sort of adds to the appeal. You get horses shipping in. It just feels like the racing's way more competitive. The fields are bigger. And so to me, the best thing about it is, you're not just dealing with the same old horses as you're seeing downstate in some of the smaller fields. To me, it just opens the races up to being a little bit more creative. Personally, I have totally changed the way that I bet the races. Really, in the last 5 years, I probably started, 8 or 9 years ago, and it just keeps changing. And I think maybe not in the greatest direction, but I just find that for the most part, it's hard for me to find races that I'm really interested in anymore, because horses just get bet. Horses that I feel like were way better prices, not that long ago, are really getting bet now. And to me, just from the way I look at it, it's hard for me to find the value that I feel like I used to find. I used to play tons of pick 4s and pick 5s, and I play almost none now. I just found if you guys, I think the most important thing, Mike, here is you got to keep track. Everybody should keep track of the bets that they make every day, and just sort of take a look at it every once in a while and see how you're doing. I realized just going back over the last 4 or 5 years that I just really wasn't doing as well in pick 4s and pick 5s as I used to. And for whatever that reason is, maybe I'm just not as good a handicapper as I used to be, or whatever it is, but I don't hit enough of them, and the ones that I do hit don't pay enough for me to, really want to keep playing them. And so I've just sort of tapered off. I barely play them anymore. And I'm down to more 2-horse bets, 1 or 2 horses. I love betting horses to win when I'm getting a price, and I'm only making win bets at prices. And I like to play exactas, and I like to play doubles. And that's pretty much what I focus my wager on. But that's just me. The most important thing here is you need to figure out what you're good at, what's working for you, And then that's what you have to sort of, focus your play on, because there's a lot of different ways to make money in this game. You just got to figure out what's working.
Mike, I've been betting horses since 1989, and I'm still trying to figure out what works for me.
It's the hardest part of the game. Like, I think everybody's been in that boat at some point.
Yeah, I mean, one day it works, one day it doesn't work, and I guess that's
right.
just gambling. But if you go to the Daily Racing Forum YouTube page, you'll see all of these videos. They're called Winning at the Spa. The first one focuses on track biases, how do the courses play at Saratoga, and then we talked about the jockey and trainer trends. You have evaluating 2-year-olds and the workouts with some of those youngsters that we're going to see at the Spa this meet, and then Winning at the Spa, tips for betting Saratoga. You can check them all out, including their picks for the Diana and the Bowling Green coming up later today. So a lot of things to check out there. And Mike, I really, really appreciate the time, my friend. It's always fun to catch up.
Mike, I was happy that when I saw you reaching out to me, it was very, very good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, buddy. Good luck this meet.
You too. Thanks.
Mike Beer, the Daily Racing Forum. Yeah, so much information there. And when I say that I had to go back and watch the jockey trainer trend video twice, I wasn't joking. There is so much that they cover in that video. And when you look at all of the graphics they put up with the ROIs, it takes you a few minutes to kind of let all of that sink in and to really understand where the value might be. Good stuff there from Mike Beer. My thanks to him. And hope it helps you when you're getting ready to play Saratoga this particular meet. All right, coming up next, I'll get you ready for hour number 2 and tell you what's ahead in hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Well, John, the stage is set for the final transaction.
That's right, Joe. Heather's moment has arrived, and you just hope all that training pays off.
Heather lays down her purchase, but Randy rings it up as slowly as he can.
He is a wily veteran.
It gives Heather's eyes the chance to wander.
Uh-oh.
Yep, she's looking at the cigarettes.
There's nothing good back there. Quit now, and in 5 years, your odds of getting certain cancers drop 50%.
Meanwhile, Randy's stone-faced. He's giving nothing away. He just stands there, wetting his cashier's finger on that sponge.
Heather toes the rubber.
Here we go. Heather's arm is in motion. But instead of pointing at the back wall, she just grabs the gum off the counter.
That's a slick move.
Heather back. She is out of there. Even Randy tips his cap to Heather. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally wants you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Thursday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, is the Brisnet.com call-in show. It's your chance to call in and let the Horse Racing Radio Nation know what's on your mind. Call us at 888-966-HRRN. That's 888-966-4776. And discuss the topics you choose in the world of thoroughbred racing. The Brisnet.com call-in show. Sirius 162, XM 207, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
Hey, this is Bobby Newman. Join me every Friday afternoon to dive deep into handicapping the races. We'll cover the live action from some of the biggest tracks in the country, talk to some of the major players in the game, and hopefully make a little money along the way. You can also call the show to share your opinions, ask a question or two, or maybe just vent about some bad beats. It's Betting with Bobby every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Sirius 162, XM 207, online channel 999, or streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Patches O'Houlihan and My Boy Prince is coming right up on the inside to go through. Patches O'Houlihan veered off, still in front. My Boy Prince on the inside. They've raced away, and then came Niagara Skyline and Play Me a Tune, drifting off a line badly. Patches O'Houlihan on the inside. My Boy Prince tries to make a race of it. Patches O'Houlihan right out wide on the track, veering off. Trying to hang on here, Sophia Vives, all over the place. But Patches O'Houlihan wide out has won from My Boy Prince. Then Dresden Row and Play Me a Tune. It was a torrid spectacle in some ways. 1:8:39.
A torrid spectacle. You got to love Robert Geller. Great call there. Patches O'Houlihan winning the Highlander Stakes back on June 28th. The sad news coming out this week that the Canadian Horse of the Year would be euthanized. Following that effort, he sustained a soft tissue injury on the gallop out and unable to be saved. And going to remember Patches O'Houlihan coming up to kick off hour number 2 in just a few minutes with Jennifer Morrison. She is the Sovereign Award-winning rider. She will be here to talk about the reigning Canadian Horse of the Year and to remember him and his impact on racing. He won 13 of 16 lifetime starts. He was 2 for 2 to kick off his campaign here in 2025, and he's certainly going to be missed. That is heartbreaking news coming out of Canada this week. Still to come, too, in hour number 2, you're going to go down the road to the Breeders' Cup with trainer Chad Brown. He will take a look at his 2 runners in today's Grade 1 Diana, and he'll talk about coming into Saratoga as the hunted every year. I remember visiting with Chad years ago, and it was before he started to dominate the Saratoga standings. And as a native of upstate New York, Saratoga, he always wanted to be the guy in Saratoga. He wanted to win that title. Well, he's done it, and now he continues to do so. And I asked him about that. Chad, what's it like now? What's your approach? Is it different now that you are the hunted as opposed to the hunter every single year? Everybody is gunning for you for that training title. He'll be hard to beat again here in 2025, no doubt about it. Want to remind you that the Godolphin Thoroughbred Industry Employee Awards are fast approaching. That is such a wonderful thing that Godolphin does. They do so many great things, but that's certainly one of them. If you know an industry employee who deserves to be nominated, you can go to TIEA.org. That's TIEA.org by midnight this Monday, July 14th, to find out more about the 7 categories and to nominate your employee. It is well worth it. It's fantastic stuff. All finalists will receive an all-expense-paid trip with a +1 to Kentucky, and $124,000 in prize money is going to be distributed. Plus, finalists will enjoy a horse farm tour and a stallion show, an afternoon of racing at Keeneland, and then the awards ceremony. So nominate your employee by midnight this Monday, July 14th, at TIEA.org. And if you're going to be there for the awards ceremony, if you're going to be in Lexington for any reason over the course of the next several months, make sure you check out Tony's of Lexington. I tell you every week about how good their steak is. They tell me the sea bass is good too. I'm not a fish guy. They tell me the sea bass is excellent, but I focus on the steak. The Sir Barton is the way that I go. It's a beautiful New York strip. So good. Although the ribeye is good. I think I've had every single steak on the menu, and I probably had them all multiple times. The filet, fantastic. It is the best steak that I have ever had at any restaurant, anywhere, with all of our travels over the years. I promise you that. Check them out. Tony's of Lexington. The atmosphere is great. The people are great. The service is great. Check. They're on Main Street just behind Rupp Arena. Make your reservations now and tell them that you heard me talking about it here on the radio. And trust me, they will take wonderful care of you. Want to give a shout-out, too, to Fred Taylor, Mojo Racing. You've heard him on this program before. Sent me a message to let me know he was listening. He's in the car right now. Fred, appreciate you tuning in. Headed to Fort Rucker in southeast Alabama, taking his daughter back there. She's married to a gentleman who flies Apache helicopters for the U.S. Army. That's pretty bad. Yeah, you know what. Thank you for your service. Really appreciate that, too. Poll question this morning. Let's give you an update before we get to hour number 2. I'm asking you, Which morning line favorite will deliver a winning performance today at Saratoga? You have Farbridge in the Bowling Green. You have She Feels Pretty in the Diana. Both of those horses, morning line favorites and expected to go postward as the favorite. Then I gave you two other choices. Both of those horses will win, or neither will win. And so far, 30% of you thinking Farbridge, not She Feels Pretty, more likely to deliver the winning effort. And that just changed because earlier in the voting, neither will win was the leader in the clubhouse there. Tough races. Neither one of them a sure thing. Even though they're both going to be favored in those races today, neither one a sure thing. And it is the graveyard of favorites. Keep that in mind. Should be fun to watch later today. You can go to @HRRN on X to cast your vote. I'll update those again later in the program. You can also do it on Facebook. Horse Racing Radio Network is our Facebook page. And if you don't do social media, you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know your thoughts. Tom in St. Louis says, neither horse wins. I like Webslinger today. So he's in the neither horse category. He's in that camp. Great day of racing in Saratoga Springs, New York. All right, when I come back, hour two begins with Jennifer Morrison. She remembers the late Patches O'Houlihan, the reigning Canadian Horse of the Year. We'll talk about that next. Hour two straight ahead, right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
1 hour down, 2 to go on this Saturday morning. With you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. Happy to have you in the saddle with me as always. This is the Equine Forum, and it's all presented by our friends at TwinSpires. As I mentioned, hour two begins with Jennifer Morrison. The Sovereign Award-winning rider will join me momentarily to remember Patches O'Houlihan. You're going to hear from trainer Chad Brown coming up later in this hour, 9:40. He goes down the road to the Breeders' Cup with me to talk about the Diana and a few other topics that we got into during that conversation. 10 o'clock Eastern, the TwinSpires Triple Play with Vance Hanson. He'll give you 3 races to watch later today, and you got to bet them over at TwinSpires as well. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History comes up at 10:20. Fun story about the 1929 Kentucky Derby winner Clyde Van Dusen. And at 10:30, I ask, they answer. Dale Roman's Tim Wilkin will both be with me to tackle some of the hottest topics in the sport today. And I'm going to ask them that same question that I'm asking you as our poll question this morning. Which morning line favorite will deliver a winning performance later today at Saratoga? Farbridge in the Bowling Green. She Feels Pretty in the Diana. And again, you can keep those votes coming here on HRRN, on our social media pages, and, of course, email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the program, you missed my conversation with trainer Jorge Abreu and with Daily Racing Forum's Mike Beer. All you have to do is head back to our website after I finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can listen to the podcast of this show and all of our shows at horseracingradio.net. You can do that, too, on every podcast platform. So wherever you get your podcasts, type in Horse Racing Radio Network and follow along with our shows each and every week. The answer to this week's impossible trivia question comes your way at 10:55 Eastern, right before I wrap up the show this morning. And here's the question for you. This Hall of Fame jockey holds the distinction of being the only rider to win the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, and Belmont Stakes on 3 different horses in 3 different years. Who is he? Difficult question. I don't know, impossible, but certainly difficult. That answer comes up 10:55 Eastern time. Well, as I mentioned, sad news coming out of Canada this week when it was announced that Patches O'Houlihan would be euthanized. The reigning Canadian Horse of the Year had won the 2025 edition of the Highlander back on June 28th. He sustained a soft tissue injury on the gallop out and was unable to be saved. Jennifer Morrison, as I mentioned, Sovereign Award-winning rider, joins me now to remember the reigning Canadian Horse of the Year. Jennifer, appreciate the visit.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on your super show. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for joining me. And I wish this was under happier circumstances, but let's celebrate Patches O'Houlihan. First of all, a horse that meant so much to Canada, not just as the Canadian Horse of the Year, but he was already 2 for 2 here in 2025, so well on his way to defending his title.
Oh, yes. I mean, I remember one of the first stories I wrote about him. It was probably 2023, just as he was winning champion sprinter that year, and it was so crazy. And that's what owner and breeder Frank DiGiulio said. It was crazy because they had just retired their Pink Lloyd, trained by Bob Tiller and owned in part by DiGiulio. And Pink Lloyd, of course, won 5 champion sprinter titles, Horse of the Year. And here comes this next horse that DiGiulio races. This one he bred himself. And he's looking like he's already getting comparisons to Pink Lloyd. It was so bizarre on how he could have another incredible sprint star right on the heels of Pink Lloyd.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And how should horse racing remember Patches O'Houlihan, Jennifer?
Well, he was, very different than Pink Lloyd, other than the fact that, he won 13 of 16 races, so he just didn't know how to lose, really. But, Patches was really, just like his namesake, and I don't know if people know, but Patches O'Houlihan is a funny character name from the movie Dodgeball, I believe it is, but it's an underdog type of movie, and owner Frank DiGiulio is very well known for his pop culture horse names. So here he has this odd name, and he's got a bit of a walleye on one side, and he's not like sleek and shiny like Pink Lloyd and tall, and like he's sort of more of a, lumbering sort of Jeep-like kind of horse, and but he was like brilliant. And the best part is that Frank DiGiulio, he bred the horse, but he bred the horse from a mare that he bought at the yearling sale for $3,000. And she was born on May the 4th, so he named her May the 4th Be With You, which was funny. She actually was a pretty hard-knocking little girl. She won a couple $100,000, not a stakes winner or anything, but here she has this, sort of rotund sort of son of our Ontario Stallion Reload. And, they admit it. Bob Tiller and DiGiulio admit it. They never thought that he would be like that. But, you cannot figure out what a horse's heart is like or their mind until you get them to the races. And he was just brilliant. And that's what, made him different than Pink Lloyd, but at the same time, just as brilliant. I mean, let's face it, he ran 108 Beyer figure in the Thorncliffe, his first start of this year. That put him third on the list behind Copian and Skelly for the highest Beyer figures in sprint races this year at the time.
Yeah, Patches O'Houlihan, named for the character played by Rip Torn in Dodgeball.
That's right.
And you're right, a very colorful character, right? And Patches O'Houlihan, the horse, kind of, as you said, embodied that at certain points in his career.
Oh, totally. I mean, just, not a flashy pedigree. And, Pink Lloyd didn't have the flashy pedigree either. But, Bob Tiller and Frank DiGiulio have been in the game a long, long time. In fact, Bob trained for Frank's dad and Frank back when Frank was just a young person. And this is going back into the, 80s. And they've been around forever. They've had all kinds of great horses, and and they're not flashy pedigrees. These are horses that Frank and Bob, get from yearling sales or breeding, and it's just, you can't help but cheer for a horse like that, especially when he comes on the track and just is. You can't explain how brilliant the horse is, and just keeps on winning. And it was amazing. I mean, we couldn't get enough entries for some of his races. The same with Pink Lloyd.
What went through your mind, Jennifer, when you heard the news that Patches O'Houlihan was euthanized?
I was shocked, and it was probably only about an hour after he had been put down. I got a call from somebody, and then Bob Tiller actually not long after put a write-up on Instagram, and you could tell he was quite upset because it was quite garbled. But, I was shocked. I had been talking with the people at Long Run Thoroughbred Retirement, where Pink Lloyd lives now, and he's a big, big star there, and there's T-shirts you can buy. So Patches O'Houlihan, it was expected that he was going to be headed that way and hang out with Pink Lloyd and some of the other retirees up there. And, you know, as the days went on, I mean, this was 2 weeks ago. I mean, this actually happened on my birthday, June 28th. And, you know, so I remember exactly the race and thinking, okay, well, you know, Woodbine said he was resting comfortably. I talked to Frank DiGiulio a couple days later. He's fine, just going to get him, you know, comfortable for pasture breeding. I was totally floored. I had no idea it was as bad as it was, and I gather it was, you know, it was quite bad.
Yeah, you know, Frank DiGiulio, it was nice to see, too, that he, in his announcement, went through and thanked everybody that had been involved with Patches O'Houlihan right from the time that he was foaled and raised and broken at the training center. He thanked his jockeys. He thanked the starting gate crew for attending to Patches so quickly after the accident. I thought that was such a classy move.
Yes, and you know what? And I think, you know, more should be done. I think horse racing in general is getting better at that, but that's important. I mean, this is a horse that captured the imagination. I can't believe that when I wrote a sad little note on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that, you know, you could just, I mean, the flooding of people that just couldn't believe the news. So it's very important that we have communication. Fans want to know. And handicappers, us crusty handicappers, everybody wants to know if our horses are okay, whether they're a superstar or whoever, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Talking with Sovereign Award-winning writer Jennifer Morrison here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, remembering the late Canadian Horse of the Year, Patches O'Houlihan, on this Saturday morning. And again, that sad news coming out on Thursday, and our condolences going out to everybody who knew and loved and was associated with Patches O'Houlihan. Jennifer, in general terms, I know I didn't tell you I was going to ask you about this, but in terms of, you know, what we're going to see here in Canada with the signature days of racing coming up. We celebrate several Woodbine weeks here on the network, where leading up to some of the big events, we recognize some of the past winners and we talk to some of the connections of those winners. But we're going to be making the trip there for the King's Plate again this year. And that event, for people that have never been, put it in perspective for us. Put it into words what being in attendance for the King's Plate is like at Woodbine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's, well, I mean, it's our race. I mean, it's Canada's race. So it's, you know, you could compare it to, I've been to one Kentucky Derby. Now, it's a much larger scale Kentucky. I had to stand on a chair on the apron to see the finish. But, you know, we have, you know, all the fixins, and people dress up and you get your photo taken, and there's, you know, signature cocktails, and it's just a vibe that you just can't compare to any other racing day. I mean, and, you know, every track should be lucky enough to have a big celebration of horse racing, and that's what it is. I mean, we celebrate horse racing, you know. As I said, you know, talking about hardened gamblers and scribes and all of us that have been at, you know, covering racing at Woodbine for 30, maybe more years. But, you know, I mean, we want to show off our racetrack, our horses. We want to show off Canadian racehorses, and people, you know, people flock to it. I mean, it does get bigger and bigger every year. Unfortunately, last year, you know, Mother Nature intervened and popped our balloon. But, you know, everyone before that was, you know, fantastic. Oh, of course, other than the COVID year when nobody was allowed to go. But, yeah, I mean, it is our race. It is a festival, and it's a celebration.
One of the things that always impresses me about international racing events is the pageantry that surrounds it. And I go back to when we were making the trip to Barbados every year for the Barbados Gold Cup, and the parade that would take place on that turf course shortly before the race was going to be run. Just spectacular. And very much the same thing with the King's Plate. It's a celebration. There was so much pageantry leading up to the race.
Well, yes, and it's very Canadiana. So the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, is our signature horses and the guards, and they come out and do their musical ride, which is, the most amazing thing. It's like synchronized swimming, but on horseback. And then we have the Governor General. Now we've had royalty here. I've been able to see the Queen Mother and the Queen in long time ago. We haven't had royalty lately. And as you know, it's called the King's Plate now because the King is now in power, as it were. When the Queen was reigning, it was the Queen's Plate. So now it's the King's Plate. But yes, we celebrate everything Canadiana, a little bit of British dashed in there. And so the Governor General will come and watch. She watches in the royal box, he or she, it's a she, but watches in the royal box. And we just celebrate everything Canadian and horse racing.
Jennifer, you mentioned that you haven't had royalty in a while. I'm going to try not to be offended by that statement because I have attended the King's Plate many times in recent years.
Sorry. Of course you're royalty, Mike. I haven't gotten to meet you yet, but hopefully this year that would be the time. I'm terribly sorry. That's good.
I forgive you. Do you have your eyes on a couple of horses for this year's King's Plate at this point, or is it still too early?
Oh, I've been following one particular horse for quite a while, since Fairgrounds. Tom's Magic is the son of Justify, born here in Kleinburg, Ontario, at Dan Mooney's Huntington Stud Farm for Sean and Dorothy Fitzhenry, who, by the way, a great couple. They have raced a lot of good horses, but they're selling their last mares this year. So this would be a great story for them. Thomas Magic won a stake on the turf at Fairgrounds and recently won the Tail of the Cat stakes on the grass at Monmouth Park. And I think he's got all the tools. Michael Stidham trains him for C.J. Johnson and the Mo Speed Racing, and I know they're pretty excited to come here. I like to see the locals win it, but I think Tom's Magic is a really strong contender. And as far as locals, and we'll see the big one, the big local hope here, as in the Woodbine-based horse next Sunday in the plate trial, Notorious Gangster, owned and bred by Mark Dodson, who's been in the game since he was a kid, trained by Josie Carroll, who's already won 3 plates. So the plate trial next Sunday, you can get a gauge of some of the horses here for that. And I'm really interested in Tom's Magic, and I can't wait to see a big, beautiful chestnut horse.
Let me circle it back to Patches O'Houlihan for a minute. Does Robert Tiller have any horses pointing for the King's Plate?
He does not, no. And he did have a 3-year-old win a route race yesterday, but it was a claiming event, and it was really nice to see Bob in the winner's circle with Sophia Vives, who, by the way, was the regular rider recently of Patches. But no, Bob, who has not won the plate, he does not have a plate horse this year.
Yeah, Canadian Hall of Famer. Hard to believe that is missing from his resume. Maybe one year he gets it. That would be special.
Yes, it would be. It's a tough race to win. He was second back in 1975 in his first or second year of training when they were calling him the Wonder Boy. And he ran second with a big long shot called Near the High Sea, 1975. I wasn't there that year, even though some people would think that I was. But yes, he's come close, Bob. He's come close.
Well, it's going to be spectacular, and I will use this opportunity to plug next week's programming here on HRRN. It is Woodbine Week, leading up to the Plates Trial, the Woodbine Oaks, all taking place next weekend. As you heard Jennifer mention, it is Woodbine Week, presented by Woodbine Entertainment, and we will focus on Canada all week long on the network and on our social media pages and on our newsletters, on our website. It will be dedicated to focusing on what is going to take place north of the border. Jennifer, it has been a delight to catch up here this morning. Thank you for taking time to remember Patches O'Houlihan. He is certainly going to leave an empty spot in the hearts of so many, not just in Canada, but around the world.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. And I appreciate you having me on, Mike. And I love that the dedication you show to all parts of the world in racing. And thank you for doing all this Canada Week. I can't wait to listen to it.
And Jennifer, by the way, just before I let you go, let me plug this. If folks want to follow you and continue to keep up on your writings and your handicapping, all the things you're involved with, they can go to @Jen's blog on X, and they can follow you there. Are there other ways that people can keep in touch?
Yeah, I write for CanadianThoroughbred.com, so people can follow me there. And closest to my heart is I do a lot of coverage, and I do the TV for Ajax Downs quarter horse racing once a week, which is about an hour away from Woodbine. So I really enjoy that sport as well. But that's where you can find me.
Jennifer, I appreciate it. All the best, and enjoy this weekend of racing.
Thank you, Mike. All the best, and thanks so much for your coverage.
All right, Jennifer Morrison here on HRRN. Yeah, Patches O'Houlihan, as I mentioned, she talked about the breeding out of the dam. May the 4th be with you, and the sire Reload, and going on to win 13 of 16 career starts, earnings of $853,000, was well on track to surpass $1 million for his career. 2 for 2 here in 2025, and he is going to be missed. And my thanks to Jennifer for that wonderful remembrance for you here this morning on the Equine Forum. When I come back, I'll start to look ahead to Chad Brown. He joins me coming up right around 9:40 Eastern time, and I'll tell you what's coming up in hour number 3, plus a couple of other little tidbits you won't want to miss. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Will you accept the Breeders' Cup Challenge? The chance to compete against the best in the world? The chance to race for a piece of over $34 million in purses and awards? The chance to be a champion. Winning a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race gives you the chance to do just that, with an invitation to horse racing's biggest event of the year, the Breeders' Cup World Championships in Del Mar, where finish lines become the start of a legacy and starting gates shine on the world stage. Win a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race and earn an automatic starting position in a Breeders' Cup race. Entry fees paid by the Breeders' Cup, a Nominator Award of $10,000, travel awards, and so much more. Here, winning a Challenge Series race is just the beginning. View the schedule of Challenge Series races happening around the world and learn more at breederscup.com/challenge.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Here's Grassy poised for his stretch drive. Right up there now with the lead. Bold Hawk is coming, but he'll be forced to go 4 wide. In behind them, it's Kindergarten Kid, followed by Canolilism. And Senegas is last of all at the top of the stretch. Headlong into the final furlong. Center divider. Grassy, Sal the Barber. Senegas getting on track late there on the outside, and Bold Hawk. Here is Grassy, who forges to the lead at the 16th pole. Grassy in front. Grassy pulling away at the very end here. In fact, he was taken in hand just under the wire to win it at the end.
That's Tom Durkin with the call of the 2011 running of the Bowling Green at Saratoga. That was actually run at Belmont Park that year, as a matter of fact. But it was a third win in the race for trainer Christophe Clement. And today his son Miguel, who has taken over the stable after his passing, is going to try to win it with Far Bridge, a horse that meant so much to his dad. It would be an emotional win if he can pull it off. But you look at the success that Christophe Clement had in this race. Honor Glide winning for him in 1999. His first win came 3 years before that in 1996 with a horse named Flagdown, a horse I loved, ridden by Jose Santos. He was as honest as the day is long when it comes to turf racing. Alan Paulson owned Flagdown. He was a horse that could really, really run. I used to watch him motor home all the time. I was a huge fan. And now his son looks to carry on that legacy with a win in the Bowling Green. Now, of course, run at Saratoga. Far Bridge, that's the by the way, the poll question, if you want another update on that, here you go. Asking you which of the two morning line favorites, Far Bridge or She Feels Pretty, more likely to deliver the winning performance later today. It was Far Bridge early in the voting, but now She Feels Pretty, and the Diana is the top pick of HRRN Nation. 38% of you saying it will be She Feels Pretty, 24% saying Far Bridge, 21% saying, you know what, neither are going to win. The graveyard of favorites going to take them both down. I don't know about that, but they both, listen, they're both going to be favored when the gates open, but it is a tough assignment for both She Feels Pretty and for Far Bridge. But the one thing I do like about Far Bridge is that he gets back to a distance that better suits him. Last time in the Grade 1 Manhattan, and yes, I used him in that race, 1 1/8, ends up finishing third. I think he's better at longer distances. Today he gets 1 3/8. The last time he did that was in the Grade 2 Man of War. 2 starts back, a win. The time before that he goes 1.5 miles. In the Pan American at Gulfstream, a win. I do think he's better. This is only his third start at 1 3/8. 1 for 2 with that win in the Man of War. I think that plays into his favor today, and that's the reason I think Far Bridge wins this race. She Feels Pretty. She Feels Pretty is rock solid. She is the leader in this Filly and Mare Turf division in most people's opinions. Let's face it, she's won 4 consecutive Greatest Stakes. 3 of those are Grade 1s. But I don't think she's a shoo-in today, even though she's even money on the morning line. Number one, she has to break from the rail. Okay, fine. Saving ground in turf races. Johnny Velasquez, he will have no problem. He knows exactly what he's doing in this race. But she breaks from the rail, and maybe more importantly, she has to contend with 2 horses trained by Chad Brown. Excellent Truth, Dynamic Pricing. Those are your 1-2 finishers from the Grade 1 Just a Game last time out when Dynamic Pricing beat Excellent Truth. And then you throw in Choicia from the barn of Simon Crisford. And I may be saying that name all wrong, and if I am, I apologize. But you throw her in there, and she knocked off Excellent Truth 2 starts back. She has credentials. Be Your Best. I said this earlier. I think Be Your Best is the most dangerous in there. Maybe not quite the classiest, although she is now a Grade 1 winner after winning the Gamely at Santa Anita on May 26th. But I think she's dangerous because I think she's Lone Speed. She has to prove today that she belongs with these other horses. But Lone Speed is dangerous in any race. So we'll see. It's a really contentious race. And I think that if you're going to pick either Far Bridge or She Feels Pretty and say which one will deliver the winning effort, I think it has to be Far Bridge. Because of the advantage that he is going to get with the added distance later today. The Diana goes as race 11 on the 12-race program, 6:14 Eastern. By the way, these are the only 2 Greatest Stakes races being run in North America anywhere today. So the focus will be squarely on Saratoga. 4:29 Eastern, race number 8 is when you can watch the Grade 2 Bowling Green. Tomorrow you have the Grade 3 Quick Call. So the 3 Greatest Stakes races run this weekend, all being run at Saratoga. And that meet just ramping up. Chad Brown, the favorite to take home another training title. You'll hear from him coming up in just about 12 minutes from right now. He talks about his 2 horses in Diana, but he also talks about coming into this meet and every meet now at Saratoga with the bullseye on his back because he's the one you have to beat. Ironically, through the first 2 days of the meet, he hasn't saddled a winner yet. Of course, he's only saddled 2 horses, but he's 0 for 2. His longtime assistant, Cherie DeVoe, who trains She Feels Pretty, is tied with George Weaver at the top of the training standings after 2 days of racing with 2 victories apiece. That will change. Chad Brown is going to win races. He's going to win a lot of races, and he is the most likely to walk away with the training title this meet. On the jockey side of things, Jose Ortiz sits atop with 4 wins. His brother Irad, who is always tough to beat there. It's been the Ortiz brothers, right, for the past, 10 years in Saratoga? Almost. Who was it? Luis Saez, the last guy to topple them? Is that right? I'll have to look it up. I'm just going by memory here. But Jose Ortiz, 4 wins. Irad Ortiz, 3 wins. Flavien Prat, 3 wins. And then Dylan Davis, Ricardo Santana Jr., each of them with 2 wins. That's the way it sits right now. Very early. And Irad and Flavien are expected to duke this one out down to the finish. But I like the way Jose Ortiz is riding now. I like the mounts that he's getting. Jose has been on fire over the past month or so. And I think if you're looking for a guy that, okay, I don't want to call him a long shot to win the title, but if you're looking for a guy to knock off his brother Irad and Flavien Prat, I think Jose is probably your guy. So don't be surprised if when we get to Travers time, start looking toward the end of the meet, Jose Ortiz still has skin in the game when it comes to the leading jockey title. Either way, it's going to be a fantastic race meet. And today, with the focus being on the greatest stakes action, I think you're really going to enjoy it. When Dale and Tim join me, 10:30 Eastern, for I Ask, They Answer, we're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to talk about several different topics. And I'm going to ask them the same poll question that I'm asking you. We'll ask them that about which favorite more likely to deliver the winning performance today. Farbridge, She Feels Pretty. But we're going to tackle a lot of other things, too. And so many of our listeners have taken time to send in questions for that segment. And if you have a question, you want to hear Dale and Tim discuss, debate, whatever it is, send it to us, Mike at horseracingradio.net, or post it on our social media pages. We will work it into that particular segment at the end of the show as we get time. One of those comes from Tom in St. Louis. Tom sent in this week asking about last weekend's Great Lady M Stakes out in California, where Sweet Azteca, who was the defending champion in that race, defended her title successfully, defeating heavily favored Copion. Now, as the field came to the top of the stretch, if you haven't seen the race, you can go back and watch the replay. Copion was starting to range up outside of Sweet Azteca. Kazushi Kimura was aboard Copion. Sweet Azteca was ridden by Juan Hernandez. Hernandez made the move to float Copion wide, about 10 wide, off the turn, coming into the stretch, forcing Copion to move back inside for the rest of the stretch run. Maybe that was the winning move. Maybe Copion was never going to get by her. But Tom's question is about the rule for jockeys floating other horses out in that manner. How much latitude are those jockeys given before an inquiry would be posted? And as I went back and watched the replay a couple of times, I didn't see contact. And I think that's probably the sticking point there. I didn't see contact where Sweet Azteca would have been steered into Copion to try to prevent Copion from coming by on the outside. I just think Juan Hernandez said, okay, if this is within the rules, within the guidelines, you're going to come up on my outside. Let's just float you out a little bit. Let's make you change direction and come inside of me. And in doing so, I can probably gain a little bit of ground on you. I didn't have a problem with it. Some people probably did. They probably don't think jockeys should be allowed to do that. I thought it was just pretty good race riding. Unless there was contact. And I couldn't see where there was contact. So I'm going to stick with that and say that I think this was pretty good race riding on the part of Juan Hernandez. He's trying to win the race. He's not going to let Copion just range up outside of him and roll right by. But I think that's a really interesting question. I'm going to bring that up with Dale and Tim, get their thoughts. Dale is a trainer. What does he think? I'm sure he's been on both sides of that equation, right? I'm sure he has. So stay tuned for that coming up at 10:30 Eastern. Of course, your TwinSpires Triple Play with Vance Hanson. 3 races to watch later today comes up at 10 o'clock Eastern. And at 10:20, Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History. The story of 1929 Kentucky Derby winner Clyde Van Dusen. All kinds of things to get to. But when I return, we go down the road to the Breeders' Cup with champion trainer Chad Brown. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
3/4 and 1 minute 10. 0.53 seconds. They straighten away. Encino to the inside. Runaway Storm tries to defend his turf. Encino and Runaway Storm, they kick for the final furlong. Money Supply, then Double Clutch and Higgins Boat. They come past the 16th with Luan Machado. Encino has carried the Godolphin Blue to the front of the field, and Encino wins by a length and a half.
Encino, the son of Darley Stallion Nyquist, made his turf debut a winning one with that victory in the Jonathan B. Schuster Memorial Stakes at Ellis Park, setting a new course record for the mile and the 16th of 139 1/5. That win gives the versatile 4-year-old stakes wins on dirt, turf, and synthetic, and makes him your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Watch for yearlings selling by Nyquist at the upcoming Saratoga and Keeneland yearling sales. And learn more about all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Zagora with a sweeping move there on the far outside, and farthest out into the track it's Aviate, and they're coming into the final furlong, and it is Zagora who strikes the lead. Zagora and Beta Bay fighting her every step of the way down to the line. Here's Aruna, who's on the scene late. They're down to the line, and it goes to Zagora, who wins it by a length and a half.
White Beam digging in. Gina Romantica, Evie Jets, Didi along the inside. They're in the final furlong, and White Beam keeps on going. Gina Romantica, Didi inside of her, and Moira. It is Flavian Pratt and White Beam looking for a repeat. White Beam all the way in the Diana.
That's the voices of Tom Durkin and Frank Miramati with the calls of Chad Brown bookend victories in the Grade 1 Diana. Zagora giving him the first of his 9 in 2011. He'd have to wait 5 more years to get back to the Diana winner's circle, but once he did, my goodness, what a run it's been. He's won 8 of the last 9 runnings, and he's looking for more later today with a couple of very talented runners at Saratoga. He's with me now. Chad, can we start to call this a Diana dynasty for you?
Well, it's certainly a race that we've targeted through the years, and we've had a lot of good horses to run in the race, so I feel fortunate for that.
What do you remember about that first one in 2011 with Zagora?
Well, it's not only my first Diana, it was my first Grade 1 win, so it was a huge relief to get one on the board, and, of course, my family and friends there, having grown up and around close by to Saratoga, and having my first Grade 1 win at Saratoga was very special.
What do you think the key has been to all the success you've had in the Diana, other than the fact that this is a race you target?
Well, having the right horses through the years and the right system. I mean, training, my mentor, Bobby Franco, really taught me so much about training all sorts of horses, types of horses, but particularly, fillies on the turf. I feel like he had a reputation of really excelling with that, and he handed me down a lot of, important knowledge. And I've had the right horses to apply it, and I've trained, the right team members around me to execute that as well. So it's all those things that played a part in this run.
The other thing that strikes me when I look at your 9 winners in this race, Chad, is the fact that starting with Zagora and then going on to horses like Decita and Lady Eli, Sister Charlie, Rushing Fall, these are horses that had an impact throughout the remainder of their career. They weren't just one-hit wonders. You were able to keep them at a high level all the way through the rest of their careers.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the overall system. It's like you said, we not only target this race, but it's a big picture of the horse's career. We try to do, especially with horses that have a lot of ability. So I'm proud of that. You know, there's many champions in that list too, horses that went on and won Eclipse Awards.
It's interesting that when you look at your horses, you have 2 horses running in the Diana later today, and when you look at those horses, Excellent Truth and Dynamic Pricing, neither are going to be the favorite, despite the fact that you've won 9 races and 8 of the last 9. This is pretty incredible, my friend.
Yeah, it is. It just wasn't a year that I necessarily have the favorite, but I have 2 good horses for the race, and so you know, some years we've won with favorites, and as you've looked through the record, often we haven't. So I think at the end of the day, it's just a high quality race with plenty of possible outcomes when you handicap it. But we've been on the right side of them, more often than not. So
let's start by looking back on the Just a Game, won by Dynamic Pricing last time out, defeating Excellent Truth, and again, those are the 2 contenders that you'll have in the Diana this year. Tell me about that race, and tell me about these 2 horses.
Well, a little different career paths. I mean, Excellent Truth was transferred to us over the winter after Mr. John Stewart bought the horse and had a nice form back home and really settled into our system nicely. She's just been a very straightforward horse, and I think a bit unlucky to not win both of her starts. I think her last race, she got the worst of the trips, I think, going a little wider. It could have been the difference between the 2. They're very close. And at Keeneland, she was interfered with late in the race, I felt anyway. And it just, I think it affected the outcome a bit. So, but the good thing is she's run good both times. So excuses aside, she showed up, which I like to see. And I think she's getting better. And lastly, I'd say I think the 1 1/8 will work good for her. The last 2 races might have been just a touch short in distance for her.
And Dynamic Pricing?
Dynamic Pricing is a horse that she's been a little slow but steady to develop. I've always thought a lot of this horse, and she's just had a couple stoppages, mostly just from maturity. She's always been a sound horse, but a little mental, a little physical. And this year I've just been taken back at how much she really improved. I thought she had a good winter, and when we ran her in the Beaugay, I expected her to run well. But since that race till today, I am pleasantly surprised of how much she's matured, this horse, both mentally and physically. She's really transformed herself, and I think that lends itself to reaching up to the grade 1 level, which she's proven, and also running a little further than I thought she'd run when she was younger. So I think she's in with a big shot.
It sounds to me like she's challenged you a little bit. We don't think about Chad Brown being challenged by many horses anymore with everything you've accomplished, but it sounds to me like Dynamic Pricing has been one of those horses.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know if challenge is the right word, but I definitely understand your point. I'd say that despite our accomplishments and experience, like horses can still surprise you a little bit of which direction they develop. And like I said, the talent's always there. Yes, a little bit of a challenge. She's not completely straightforward to train either, actually, so that's right on. But I think you leave your options, you leave an open mind for the horses to develop and which way they're going to go, and you sort of bring them along. But I'm not afraid to admit when horses, might reach a little bit, higher of a level than I thought, or run further, or maybe change a surface. I mean, it can happen, no matter how much experience you have or how many races you won. So with this filly, I was hopeful, but I wasn't banking on it. And when I look at her now, I'm quite impressed and relieved that she's turned into a horse that we originally thought when I bought her.
She Feels Pretty, the morning line favorite, breaks from post number 1 in the Diana. She comes in on a 4-race win streak. 3 of those have been in Grade 1s, including her most recent, the Grade 1 New York Stakes on June 6th at Saratoga. What's the key to being able to knock off a horse like She Feels Pretty this afternoon?
I don't view it as like one-on-one matchups with horses. I mean, again, it's a good question, but we just run our race the way our horses like to run, and I think if either of our horses shows up with their best effort, they're going to be very competitive in there. And the favorite's a deserving favorite on paper, and she's got a really good form coming into the race, and she's extremely formidable. But there's a couple extra horses in the race besides these two, and it's going to come down to I think who's at their best this day, and even though it's a short field, the trip's going to be important.
Visiting with trainer Chad Brown here on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Chad, I remember talking to you years ago when you were the hunter trying to get to the top of the Saratoga training list, and you did it. And now you are the man to beat every single year when Saratoga opens. What's it like being the hunted as opposed to the hunter?
Well, it's definitely a little bit different position, but I guess over the last few years, you just you sort of accept the expectations and the high bar that's set, and whether it's with fans, gamblers, media, owners, people around you, you just, for you and your team, you embrace it, you accept it, you try to maintain staying on top, or whatever terminology you want to apply to it. But listen, it's a competitive space. I mean, there's a lot of good trainers out there. It's always changing of who has what horses and who's coming along and such, and that can do a good job. And we've been lucky enough with our clientele to always have a good supply of talented horses to work with, and me and my team have found a way to find slots for them at Saratoga where they're competitive, and they're placing our horses and managing our horses well. I think it's a big component of it, not just the training techniques. And but it's you'd rather be in this position than not having the resources to compete. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, Chad Brown on HRN. Chad, listen, I appreciate the visit. I know you have a lot of things to get to, so I appreciate spending some time talking about that Diana and looking ahead. Just before I let you go, a couple of the key names that we're expecting to see from Chad Brown at Saratoga this meet. What would those key names be?
Well, Sierra Leone.
He's a key name. He's okay.
And the Whitney. You have a horse like Raging Sea. She's really turned in to have a great career, and really competing at the very top of her division. So she'll see some action for sure. Ways and Means is another horse that came back, and Belmont Weekend really ran well. She won twice this year, and I think a strong competitor in that female sprint division that looks pretty good this year. And you have some exciting new horses. Strategic Focus is really 2 for 2 crossing the finish line. You got disqualified last time. A really promising gun runner, Colt for Klarovich, that's going to probably head to the Curlin and possibly onto the Travers if he does well. It's a very, very high-quality horse that runs fast numbers. He's exciting, lightly raced, but and plenty to prove, but exciting horse. So plenty of nice 2-year-olds. Coming along as well. So a nice mix. I'm sure I forgot some horses, but you retire a bunch of nice horses that had great careers, and you wonder how you can replace them, and then the 2-year-olds come in and you have hope. So we should roll out if they stay healthy, a lot of future stars.
Chad, good luck this weekend, and good luck throughout the rest of the meet, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Chad Brown here on HRRN. That is our Road to the Breeders' Cup segment, and who better to do it with than a guy like Chad Brown, who has had so much success, not just in races like the Diana later today, but certainly in the Breeders' Cup, and he's looking for more. You heard him talk about Sierra Leone, last year's Breeders' Cup Classic winner, pointing for the Whitney. Listen, what we're seeing from the older horse division this year, and then the horses that are 3-year-olds, which the 3-year-old crop appears to be extremely strong. And I think that as we get later in the season and they start facing the older horses, it's going to make for some compelling racing. But the older horse division really does seem like it's stacked right now. And if you look ahead to a race like the Whitney, and just the fact that you get the Breeders' Cup Classic champion there is great. But he's got to continue to show that he can find a way to regain that winning form. He's, as we saw in the Stephen Foster last time out, Sierra Leone had the label going into the Classic last year as being a horse that, yeah, he puts in his run, but he always comes up short. He just doesn't get over the top. Well, he got over the top that day. He has to prove that he's not the same horse that he was before the Breeders' Cup Classic. The Whitney would be a great place to start. My thanks to Chad for taking time to be with me here on the Equine Forum this morning to go down the road to the Breeders' Cup. That segment presented every week by our friends at Breeders' Cup. When I come back, I will take a look at a few historical dates in racing history as they apply to this particular weekend, and I'll tell you what's coming up in hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network. The 27th Annual Claiming Crown is back at Churchill Downs November 15th, and you can punch your ticket on Claiming Crown Showcase Day, Thursday, August 21st at Colonial Downs, offering automatic entry into the Claiming Crown for the top 2 finishers in each division. In addition, the winner of each dedicated race on Showcase Day will receive a travel stipend up to $2,000, provided they start in the Claiming Crown in November. Don't miss your chance. Claiming Crown Showcase Day at Colonial Downs is Thursday, August 21st.
Did you know? VA home loans are a key to home ownership for those who served.
I would tell anybody who is interested in getting a VA loan to just do it.
For me, the best thing about the VA loan was the simplicity of it. I was expecting, government paperwork. It was going to go on forever, and it just wasn't.
Since the down payment for a VA loan is minimal, we were able to purchase this home and then use the money that we were going to use as a down to actually fix up the home.
And the only way we could do that was because the nest egg that we had saved for the down payment, we didn't have to use because we went the VA route.
This is a wonderful benefit that veterans can take advantage of.
In the military, we make a lot of sacrifices. We're away from our family a lot. And with the VA loan, it's a way that it makes it easier for us to get a home.
To learn more about VA home loans, visit va.gov/home loans.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolate candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Hey, this is Bobby Newman. Join me every Friday afternoon to dive deep into handicapping the races. We'll cover the live action from some of the biggest tracks in the country, talk to some of the major players in the game, and hopefully make a little money along the way. You can also call the show to share your opinions, ask a question or two, or maybe just vent about some bad beats. It's Betting with Bobby every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Sirius 162, XM 207, online channel 999, or streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And Tony Eclipse will have the lead at the top of the stretch with a quarter mile left to go. They've got to catch Tony Eclipse, who hugs the rail, kicks for home. It's hammer time with full momentum down the center of the racetrack, and here comes It's Hammer Time. Studley Do Right is in the fight as well, and Bacoma rides. They're still chasing Tony Eclipse at the rail. 4 of them across the racetrack here in the Nashua. It's still Tony Eclipse there. Studley Do Right, Bacoma rides trying to pick him up. In between horses, Studley Do Right. Studley Do Right wins the Nashua. Studley Do Right wins it. Then came a photo to the inside. That was Tony Eclipse. To the outside, Bacoma rides. A 1:37 and 1.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, getting ready to wind down hour 2 and look ahead to hour number 3. Lots more content coming your way, so don't go anywhere. That was Studley Do Right winning the Nashua Stakes November 2nd of last year. Studley Do Right is back in action later today. He's a horse trained by Jerry Robb that was considered at one point to be a potential Kentucky Derby horse. Remember when he finished second in the Sanford Stakes at Saratoga last year and then came back in the Hopeful? He was 15-1 in that race, ran against Chancer McPatrick. Didn't run well. He hit the gate that day, never got into gear, ends up finishing 7th. And then he started to focus on some other spots. But his win in the Nashua, November 2nd, put him back on the radar to be a potential Kentucky Derby horse. Jerry Robb takes a shot after that, goes in the Grade 2 Remsen, ends up finishing 4th. Returns in the Jerome, ends up finishing 4th again, goes in the John Battaglia Memorial, ends up finishing 5th. And at that point, the decision was made, okay, he's not going to be a Derby horse. Ran in the Virginia Derby, the Federico Tessio, the J.W. Murphy. What do all those other races after the Nashua have in common? Those 6 races I just walked through. They were all losing efforts. Studley Do-Right has not won since winning the Nashua November 2nd of last year. 0 for 6 cents. He's back in action later today. The reason I bring him up, because he's back in action later today. There is racing outside of Saratoga. I know we spent a lot of time talking about Saratoga this morning. But Studley Do-Right goes in the Star de Nascra, which is a $125,000 stake, 7/8 of a mile at Colonial Downs. It's race number 9, 4:35 Eastern. He's 12-1 in that spot. But I think he's one of the more interesting runners in there, at least from a storyline standpoint. Can he get back on track? Can he find a way to get back on track somehow this afternoon? The X-Man, Xavier Perez, in the irons. He's ridden him for the majority of his career. Should be really interesting. Again, from a storyline standpoint, I think Studley Do-Right is intriguing this afternoon. Want to remind you that the 2025 Godolphin Thoroughbred Industry Awards are fast approaching, and if you know an industry employee who deserves to be nominated, you can go to TIEA.org, and you have to do that by midnight this Monday, July 14th, and you can find out about the 7 categories, and you can nominate right there. All the finalists will receive an all-expense-paid trip with a +1 to Kentucky, and a $124,000 in prize money is going to be distributed. Plus, finalists will enjoy a horse farm tour, a stallion show, and an afternoon of racing at Keeneland, and then the awards ceremony. You can nominate your employee by midnight, Monday, July 14th, this Monday, at TIEA.org. It's a fantastic program created by Godolphin. Okay, time to take a look at a couple dates in racing history as they apply to this particular weekend. And there's only a few, but I think they're significant. Today, July 12th, 1971, is when Bold Ruler, who was the sire of 82 stakes winners, including the great Secretariat, died at Claiborne Farm. Tomorrow, July 13th, 1986, happy anniversary to jockey Kent DeSormo. The future Hall of Famer rode his first career winner, a 3-year-old filly by the name of Miss Tavern, in the 5th race at Evangeline Downs. And July 13th, 1996, tomorrow, the anniversary of Cigar tying Citation's record of 16 consecutive victories when he won the Citation Challenge at Arlington International. Arlington, one of those courses that you just love to bring back, isn't it? Those are historical dates in racing history for this particular weekend. And speaking of racetracks that you would like to bring back, when Dale and Tim join me, 10:30 Eastern for I Ask, They Answer, that is going to be one of the topics. Which racetrack no longer in existence, which 3? I'm going to ask them for 3. Which 3 racetracks would you like to see resurrected again? Brought back, if you will, in their heyday. And the reason I bring that up is because this past Thursday marked the anniversary of Suffolk Downs opening their doors for the first time in 1935. Of course, the East Boston track closed in 2019. So it got me to thinking, which 3 tracks that are no longer in existence would you love to bring back? Resurrect them again. For me, Hialeah, I never had the opportunity to go to Hialeah, at least not when thoroughbreds were racing there. I've been there, but it was after Hialeah had closed and moved on to other things. But I think Hialeah in its heyday would be really cool to see? Rockingham in New Hampshire. That was always one of my favorites. When I was living in Nashua, New Hampshire, I would often make the trip up to Rockingham. Such a cool course. Arlington, of course. I'm partial to the Northampton Fair in Northampton, Massachusetts, where I called my very first races with my longtime mentor, the late Pete Coulis. He was the announcer there, brought me up there in the summertime, called some races. Boy, that was fun. All right, 2 hours down, 1 to go here on the Equine Forum. Hour 3 coming your way next. If your local station is leaving us at this time, continue listening to the third hour of the show nationwide on ESPN 680 in Louisville, and you can listen on Sirius XM satellite radio, and of course streaming worldwide at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 comes your way next, right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Here's Lady Eli, charging on the far outside. Antino sneaks through an opening at the fence. Ghidorah's fighting hard. Lady Eli comes at her from the outside. Antino comes at her from the rail. The three of them battle it out to the wire in the Diana. Here's the finish. It is the dauntless Lady Eli.
Red Rifle, who saved all the ground, just squeezes on through. War Dancer is there on the outside and imagining Red Rifle. Red Rifle is in front, close to home. And what a brilliant ride by Javier Castellano. Red Rifle wins the Bowling Green.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Totally Boss is fourth and putting in a bid on the far outside, but still World of Trouble there with Dirty. These two are 1-2. Outside of them, Fig Jelly. Totally Boss is fourth as World of Trouble just keeps on going. World of Trouble will win the quick call.
And here is Caribbean Sunset, who comes bursting on through to take the lead. And Forever Together coming with giant strides, and there she is to win the Diana again. Forever Together.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back, Hour 3 of the Equine Forum. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. Happy to have you along for the ride. If you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the program, my goodness, you missed a lot, including my conversation with Mike Beer of the Daily Racing Forum, taking a look at some tips and trends to help you play the Saratoga races this meet. And then that conversation with Chad Brown, looking ahead to the Diana. Will he add number 10 to his resume later today? We will find out. But we have plenty of things to get to here in hour number 3, including the TwinSpires Triple Play. Vance Hanson has 3 races for you to watch and wager on at TwinSpires later today. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History, which is going to be fun. It's a story about a horse by the name of Clyde Van Dusen, who some people feel is maybe the worst Kentucky Derby winner ever. Well, Kurt's going to tell you potentially why that is not true. And then at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim. We'll tackle some of the hottest topics in the sport today, and a couple of fun topics, too, submitted by our listeners. So we'll have a lot of fun in that segment coming up at the end of the program. But without further ado, we say hello to Vance Hanson with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Vance, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Glad to be with you again.
I'm going to plug James Scully and the success that he had on this segment 1 week ago. So I hope you brought your A game. James went 2 for 3, a couple of nice prices too, and his third pick that did not win ended up finishing second, paid $8 for second. So James was en fuego last week, and I know you'll keep the momentum rolling for us this week, my friend.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough act to follow, but I'm going to try my best here in the 3 races coming up.
Well, you have focused
James was very excited about last Saturday. He let us all know about his success last week, and I was very happy for him, and hope he cashed some nice tickets.
I would expect nothing less. Yeah, it was a great week, and hopefully we continue that momentum here this morning as well. You've chosen the 5th race at Saratoga, the 10th at Colonial Downs, and then we'll come back to Saratoga for the final leg of the Triple Play, which is race number 12. But let's kick it off with race number 5. This is a full field, 1 1/16 race on the inner turf at Saratoga. Purse of $115K, 246 Eastern is the post. How'd you see race number 5?
Well, if I'm correct on number 4, It's All Coming Together for trainer Phil Serpy. I think this horse is coming in second race off the layoff. If I'm right on his form cycle, I expect him to take a step forward off of his recent comeback effort in the Kingston Stakes for New York breds. He's tackling Open Allowance Company here, but he does have some very positive form against Open Allowance Company dating back to October. And he's also having a rematch with the Kingston winner here, Clear Conscience. But this horse, I think, should set a very good trip. We got a really good speed horse on his inside, Union Trail, and It's All Coming Together as a kind of a good stalking type with Luis Saez aboard. And I figure if Union Trail can just bust out there and sets a pretty honest pace, It's All Coming Together can just sit right off of that and get first run. He did get first run in the Kingston Stakes last time out, coming off of a brief layoff, but he did get run down. I think Saez could show a little more patience here. And the last time he was on this horse, too, back at Gulfstream, he nearly won at this very level, going a mile after he had chased a fast pace. So at 9-2 morning line odds, I think It's All Coming Together is a horse to look at very closely here.
You know, Vance, earlier in the show, in hour 1, I spent time with Mike Beer of the Racing Form, and he was talking about some jockey trends and even trainer trends too, but we've spent a lot of time talking about the jockey trends, and wish jockeys presented really strong ROI. And Luis Saez is a guy, I don't remember what the stats were on him, but he's a guy that whenever he shows up, especially in turf races, I really like to look at him because I think that he rides turf courses extremely well.
I think so too, and it's going to be a trend on my part too, because we're going to be talking about another horse of his later on in this segment, and like I said, he rode this horse 2 races back at Gulfstream and just got narrowly beaten after a very good ride, and that was against a pretty decent horse in Sherlock's Jewel, who was a grade 3 placed horse running an allowance. So yeah, I give Luis Saez props for a lot of what he's done during the course of his career.
For people that like to play exactas and trifectas, is there another horse or two in this race that you might recommend taking a look at to use with It's All Coming Together?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely go back to Clear Conscience, who beat him in the Kingston Stakes last out, and he's got a terrific record at Saratoga, 2 wins and a second from 3 starts. And, of course, you have to look at Chad Brown's 2 horses, also Activist Investing and Retouch. They're both going to take some money here. And so, yeah, they're logical contenders, obviously, for Chad. But just going for a little bit of a price here in race number 5.
Solid value, 9-2 on the morning line. Number 4, It's All Coming Together, the top pick for Vance Hanson in race 5 at Saratoga. Vance, let's move over to Colonial Downs, another solid race card there, and you're going to focus on race number 10, which is a maiden special weight event, state breds on the inner turf, 1 mile, 5:07 Eastern is the post. How'd you see that one?
Well, I'm hoping number 3, Risky Business, fires fresh off the layoff like she kind of did last summer when trying the turf at Laurel last June. Ran very poorly in her debut in October 2023. She didn't come back until last June, but then ran a pretty good race at Laurel. Going 1 mile and a 16th on the grass, burst out, showed speed, tired late, but did finish finished a second by a neck. Lost the race by 2.5 lengths, but I thought that was a very good effort on her part. And then in her most recent start, which was last July, race was rained off the grass, run on a sloppy main track at these exact conditions, state restricted event, maiden event, and she ran kind of evenly throughout, wound up second there too. But so we haven't seen Risky Business since then. However, I think based on her form at Laurel and Colonial last summer and the fact that she can fire fresh as she showed last year, she should be one to watch out for trainer Jane Sibeli.
Very cleverly named as well, because Risky Business is by B Jersey out of a dam named Risky Agenda. So Risky Business makes a lot of sense in here.
Absolutely. And also, I'll note that she gets jockey Ben Curtis here. And, of course, Ben is a terrific grass rider in his own right. So lots of positives, I think, going into this race.
6-1 morning line. Do you approach betting this race differently than you do race 5 at Saratoga, where it's all coming together? Your top pick was 9-2. Do you approach it differently with a 6-1 shot?
Not necessarily. I mean, given the odds on both of those horses, I'm definitely kind of emphasizing a win wager, especially if she stays around the 6-1 mark, and she probably will, because there's some horses in here that have been running fairly well, or at least been hitting the board on the tougher Kentucky circuit. Horses like Sophie's Cruiser, who's the morning line favorite. So, yeah, win wagers for me are definitely an emphasis.
Okay, Risky Business, number 3, 6-1 morning line, off the layoff for Vance Hanson in the 10th race. The finale, by the way, at Colonial Downs later today. Vance, back at Saratoga. You'll wrap up your triple play with race number 12, the final race on Saratoga's program this afternoon, 6:49 Eastern. That's a 5.5 furlong turf sprint, and I always say anything can happen in these races. So who are we going with here?
Well, we mentioned Luis Saez. I'm going to go back to him in this race. He's aboard number 1, Regalton, a 3-year-old filly making her second lifetime start. She debuted on May 1st at Gulfstream over the Tapeta surface down there. It was a short 5-furlong dash, and she got into second place early on and stayed in that position and closed the gap late a little bit and lost by only a length to Luna Luska, who is a filly that's really on fire. She's won 3 straight, including a stakes at Horseshoe Indianapolis last weekend. So that's a very good second place finish against a really tough filly in her debut. She's moving to the grass this time, and of course, if you look at her pedigree, she's got the Aussie-bred Zoustar as a sire, and she's out of a mare by Royal Applause, who was bred in England, and the dam was bred in England as well. So I would expect her to adapt quite well to the surface switch for trainer George Weaver. And, Regalton is, I believe, 8-1 on the morning line, and I think she's probably going to stay at that price because there's a lot of other fillies in this race that are going to take some money here. Wesley Ward's filly is going to take some money. Panache on the outside for Cherie DeVaux. So I think you're going to get some value here with Regalton.
Yeah, Chad Brown has a first-time starter in here as well by the name of My Divine Spirit, number 3, who is 7-2 on the morning line under Flavien Prat. So you know that she is going to get some respect with bettors as well. Vance, when you're looking at a race like this, a maiden special weight race, 5.5 furlong turf race, you don't have a lot to go on because most of these horses have not started more than just a couple of times in their career. Some have not started at all. What are some of the key things that you're looking at to lead you in the direction of horses you feel will be a contender?
And like you said, in a race like this where they haven't run very often, I'm very much looking for unexposed types, horses with a limited number of starts. And Regalton qualifies. A few other fillies qualify here too, but I do like her recency, and just in general, horses. They're going to horses generally improve very much second time out. And if I can latch onto a filly, in this case, like Regalton, like that, those are the kind I really like to gravitate towards.
And you get rewarded with a solid price, 8-1 on the morning line. Let's recap Vance's TwinSpires triple play for this Saturday morning. He'll kick it off in race 5 at Saratoga. Number 4, It's All Coming Together at 9-2. Is the morning line price on It's All Coming Together. That's his top pick. Race 10 at Colonial, he'll take number 3, Risky Business at 6-1. And in race 12 at Saratoga, we just talked about number 1, Regalton, 8-1 on the morning line. Vance, what else is happening this weekend at TwinSpires and at Briss?
Well, of course, we got the summer racing season in full swing. Saratoga, we got offers all over there. Not in Colonial Downs open this week, of course. It's one of our family tracks that we have, and then you mentioned what a great card they have for Saturday. So lots of great domestic action. Just go check out TwinSpires.com for some of our betting offers for all of our customers, and good luck to everyone this weekend.
All right, Vance Hanson, TwinSpires Triple Play. Make sure you play each of those races and every race you're going to bet this weekend with TwinSpires. Vance, appreciate it. Good luck, my friend.
Thanks, Mike. Good to talk with you.
All right, Vance will be back with us here in a few weeks. Next week, likely Ashley Anderson, but we'll keep you posted on that. Make sure you tune in this very same time every single week for the TwinSpires Triple Play. And again, James Scully was in fuego last weekend. We'll see if Vance can keep it rolling for us here this weekend as well. Coming up next, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history, and still to come, Dale and Tim with I Ask, They Answer. And I will unveil the answer to the impossible trivia question this week, and here it is. This Hall of Fame jockey holds the distinction of being the only rider to win the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, and Belmont Stakes on 3 different horses in 3 different years. Who is he? The answer comes your way right around 10:55 Eastern before I wrap up the show here this morning. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, coming your way next here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Colonial Downs summer racing season is here, beginning Wednesday, July 9th, with racing 4 days a week. Afternoon racing on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and a twilight post of 4 p.m. Eastern every Friday. Back is our popular 12% takeout Pick 5 offered twice daily. Join us for our biggest days of the season, August 9th at noon for Colonial Downs Festival of Racing, which features the Arlington Million, and then September 6th, the Grade 3 Old Dominion Derby. Colonial Downs, the race is just the start.
Live racing for the 25-day Ellis Park meeting begins Thursday, July 3rd and runs through Saturday, August 24th, with a record $4 million in stakes purses led by 7 stakes across Kentucky Downs Preview Weekend on August 2nd and 3rd, and 6 stakes on Sunday, August 10th, featuring the $300,000 Ellis Park Derby and the $200,000 Groupie Doll. Connections with Kentucky-bred horses will be competing for $100,000 maiden special weight purses and allowances up to $108,000, and horse players will have plenty of action throughout the summer. For a full list of events, visit EllisParkOwensboroGaming.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He raced nearly 100 years ago, but somehow he is still the subject of controversy. A social media post recently asked the question if he might be one of the worst Kentucky Derby winners in history. His name was Clyde Van Dusen. Foaled in 1926 at Few Acres Farm just outside of Lexington, Kentucky, Clyde Van Dusen was a chestnut colt, later gelded by Man o' War out of Uncle's Lassie by Uncle. His sire, of course, is still regarded as one of the greatest racehorses of all time, while his dam was described as small but fast. Before proceeding with a look at Clyde Van Dusen's racing career, let's establish a couple of points of order. First, the premise of the question, which was posed on social media, seemed to be that Clyde Van Dusen's win in the Kentucky Derby was little more than a fluke, resulting from a sloppy track on Derby Day, which played to his strengths. And there is also the matter that several people already have rushed to Clyde Van Dusen's defense, commenting that the fact he was the best on Derby Day means he had nothing more to prove. While we understand the temptation to dismiss Clyde Van Dusen's Derby success as an accident of track conditions, even the most modest amount of research will expose that idea as misleading. And while we don't disagree with the premise that any horse which wins the Kentucky Derby automatically has earned his place in history, we will illustrate that Clyde Van Dusen has a sufficient resume that he doesn't need to fall back on the "at least he won the Derby" argument. Named for his trainer, foaled at his trainer's farm, and owned and bred by Herbert Gardner of Amsterdam, New York, Clyde Van Dusen began his career in a series of races held at the Kentucky Association track in Lexington in the spring of 1928. He lost on debut by a head, but bounced back to score his maiden victory on April 30th. 5 days later, on closing day of the spring meet in Lexington, Clyde Van Dusen won the Idle Hour Stakes at 4.5 furlongs by 4 lengths. He was described in newspaper accounts as one of the stars of the meet, having come within a few inches of winning all 3 of his starts. In June, Clyde Van Dusen shipped to Fairmount Park in Collinsville, Illinois, just across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Missouri. The event was the Valley Stakes at 5.5 furlongs, and it had drawn a crowd of 10,000 spectators. Clyde Van Dusen stalked the pace before taking the lead at the top of the stretch and drawing clear by 6 lengths at the wire. Heading north to Chicago, Clyde Van Dusen continued piling up victories, capturing the 6-furlong futurity trial on opening day of the Arlington Park late summer meeting. In fact, Clyde Van Dusen kept racing and winning all the way to December. On November 12th, for example, he won the Orphanage Stakes by 6 lengths at the Idle Hour Farm charity meet on Old Frankfort Pike in Lexington. It was an event which helped raise money for 30 orphanages across Kentucky. And on December 2nd, Clyde Van Dusen concluded the 1928 calendar with a 6-length score in the Kentucky Jockey Club at Churchill Downs, paying $24 at the Mutual windows. And that brings us to Clyde Van Dusen's 3-year-old campaign and the 55th running of the Kentucky Derby. The idea that Clyde Van Dusen won the Derby as a fluke because of a rain-soaked track is easily disproved with a minimal amount of research. For one thing, Clyde Van Dusen was on everyone's radar, as he was the second choice in the Derby Winter Book. For another, he beat 20 rivals to win the Roses at Churchill Downs. He paid $8 at the windows. Not exactly the shocking upset of a horse like Mind That Bird, which won the Derby in the slop at odds of 50-1. And Clyde Van Dusen won the Derby by 3 lengths while eased up in the final 16th by jockey Linus McAtee. Like his dam, Clyde Van Dusen was a tiny horse. He was chestnut with a long white blaze down the center of his face. He stood calmly in the paddock prior to the Derby that day. He never raised his ears, never gave the crowd a second glance, and never flinched at the thunder and lightning as post time approached at 4:58 p.m. The date was May 18, 1929. As the horses went to the post, thunder rolled incessantly and lightning appeared as jagged branches of fire stabbing the air. Thunderstorms had turned the Churchill Downs racetrack to a sea of mud and water. One turf writer described Clyde Van Dusen's victory in the Kentucky Derby by saying, quote, "A steel gray sky wept profusely as a little red horse raced to eternal fame," end quote. Was it a rainy Kentucky Derby in 1929? Yes. Did Clyde Van Dusen like running in the mud? Obviously. Was he a fluke winner with no other racing credentials? No, and it's a point easily disproved with around 5 to 10 minutes of research. Clyde Van Dusen died in 1948 at the age of 22, after serving several years as a stable pony in the barn of the trainer for whom he was named. He remains one of only 9 geldings ever to win the Kentucky Derby in its 151 runnings. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
Kurt Becker with another fantastic story. If you did miss it, head over to our website after I finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Podbean or Apple Podcasts to hear all of our weekly shows. Coming up next, I welcome Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Monmouth Park's summer season rolls on with live racing action starting at 12:50 every weekend. Monmouth's 2025 season featured increased total handle for the 4th straight year. The biggest pools means bigger payoffs. New for 2025, Monmouth introduces a 50-cent middle pick 5, joining the win early pick 5 on the wagering menu. With a stakes race every Saturday and Sunday, Monmouth Park is your summer place to profit. Attending on site, lock in your odds with fixed odds wagering at Monmouth Park Racetrack.
His sire is one of the most exciting young stallions in the world. His dam has become one of the most important broodmares in the industry. And on the first Saturday in May, his genetic brilliance shined brightest on racing's biggest stage.
They come into the final 16th, and it is going to be Mage to win the Kentucky Derby.
Mage, standing at Airdrie Stud. Think about it.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
Anglophile is in full pursuit down the center of the course, but still a hand ride on Farbridge, and Farbridge has a furlong left to get. It's Farbridge who's up by a length and a half. Anglophile is a stubborn foe towards the outside. Farbridge is inside the final 16th. Anglophile clear second, but Farbridge is much the best in the Man of War.
And She Feels Pretty takes the lead inside the final 1/8 of a mile. Beach Bomb's going to make her work for it. She Feels Pretty just in front of a very stubborn Beach Bomb. She Feels Pretty. Yet another grade 1 for this magnificent daughter of Caraconte.
Farbridge and She Feels Pretty. They'll both be favored in their respective greatest stakes at Saratoga later today. But which one is most likely to deliver a winning performance? Plus, Thursday marked the anniversary of Suffolk Downs opening in 1935. Which 3 tracks no longer in existence would Dale and Tim like to see resurrected? And with the summer movie season underway, what horse or famous story of the thoroughbred industry is one that deserves a shot to be told on the big screen? Our thoughts on those topics and much, much more are coming up on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
A spark turns into a dream, and your dreams fuel a love that will last a lifetime. Turn your passion into a career with experienced guidance, a thorough study of equine business, as well as opportunities to get your hands dirty and put your mind to work. Located in the heart of horse country, let your passion fuel your profession at the U of L Equine Industry Program. Apply today.
All right, guys, every week we remind our listeners that if they have a topic or a question they want to ask each of you, they can email the show or they can post that question on our social media pages and we'll work it in. We have 3 of the 5 topics coming from our listeners today, including this first one, which comes from Mike, who emails the show from just outside Dallas, Texas. Tim, he said he met you at Kentucky Downs last year, and he wants to know what the difference is between restricted allowance races and conditioned allowance races. We'll get to Timmy's thoughts in just a minute, but Dale, I want to come to you on this one first. What's the difference?
The big difference is you could be restricted for state bred. You could have a state bred A other than, or you could have it restricted to horses that have been purchased for a certain price. That's a new condition that's come up. So you'll have an A other than for horses that have been purchased for under $65,000, but have broken their maiden, things like that. It's just it's just restricted to a smaller group of horses. Mostly state breds, I would think, are mostly restricted races.
And a conditioned allowance race.
Well, conditioned allowance races all have normal conditions, but they can even restrict those. Like the purchase price was a restriction.
I don't know what else to say about that. Mr. Roman seemed to cover it quite well, and I do remember him from Kentucky Downs. I believe his wife was with him, and they came up and spent some time in the press box, and for some reason they wanted to have their picture taken with me, which I'm sure is worth about 6 cents in the recycle bin these days. But very nice guy, and I'm glad he sent us the question.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, Dale, when we start looking at not even allowance races, but even claiming races, and
bettors and horse players will get very confused when they start looking at all these different conditions. But, that's what makes the profession of training so unique, is that you have to decipher all of those. And I think that's why he was so anxious to hear from you.
Yeah, people might not realize we get a book about 2 weeks out, 2 weeks worth of racing, and we'll get it about 2 weeks before it starts, and it'll have all the conditions in the race. And to me, that's the main thing about handicapping, is understanding the conditions and making sure horses are running in the conditions they should be. It's more important than numbers or anything, that the horses are running in the best spot possible.
I mean, yeah, you could have, a horse, the conditions, non-winner of 3 races lifetime, only horses with 2 or fewer wins can enter. If they don't, that's pretty obvious. And, the level of the wins that they have, non-winners of 2 races other than a maiden, claiming, or a starter.
But a gambler, a novice gambler might understand that if you run in a 50, and it'll say on there 50 NW3, if you're running in 9 winners of 3 and you're running an open 50, it's totally different. And a lot of times you're running open 50s, claiming races, and you think, well, allowance race is harder. Well, actually, they've already cleared the first 2 levels, a lot of them, or even the 3rd level. They just can't get to the next level in allowance or stakes conditions, and they're running in open 50s because that's the only place they can win races, where those open 50s sometimes can be more difficult than an allowance race.
No, they want to keep some of these horses, offer, a fair opportunity for horses at, similar competitive levels, right?
It's all about parity. Every sport has to have parity, and making sure the horses end up where in those spots where they're competitive. The whole group of them is, instead of one dominating any class, which you really only see in starter divisions, which is a whole different type of race. Horses that started for a claiming price, and you can run them in starter races forever. But the first thing to do anytime you're handicapping is read the top of the page of the conditions and understand which horses are best fit for that condition.
Dale, how much time do you spend looking at the condition book when it comes out?
Oh, quite a bit, but it's, most of the time you got it pretty much memorized. I mean, I know which races are coming up before the books ever come out. I've been doing it so long, and they're very similar most of the time. But there's even programs out there that you can put a horse's name in, and it'll scan every condition book in the country for you and tell you where they're coming. And Jake and my son will work on that together. He goes through, and that's a lot of agents do that. The agent has to know every horse that's going to enter in every race in that book before the entries are ever made, and handicap the races and understand which ones have the best chance to win, so they want to go try to get on that horse before there's ever any entries made. So they spend a whole lot of time working with the condition book, figuring out which horses are going to run 2 weeks ahead of time.
Mike, great question. Appreciate it. If you have a question for Dale and Tim, we'll remind you once again that you can submit your questions to us via email, mike@horseracingradio.net, or you can post them on our social media pages. We will get them worked in for you. Dale loves when the questions are left up to me. In particular, this next question. Tim, I'm going to come to you first. Which morning line favorite is most likely to deliver a win this afternoon? Would it be Far Bridge, who stretches back out in the Grade 2 Bowling Green, or She Feels Pretty, who will have to hold off a pair of runners trained by 9-time Diana Stakes winner Chad Brown in the Grade 1 feature? What do you think?
Well, it's an interesting question, Mike.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
The Diana might as well be changed, the name of it, to the Chad Brown Invitational or the Chad Brown Stakes. Besides winning it 9 times, it always won the last 4. And he's got 2 formidable horses in here in dynamic pricing and excellent truth. But She Feels Pretty from Sherry DeVoe's barn, is riding I believe it's 4-race winning streak, and she could have very well been 5, but she got beaten like Placid last year by a neck. I'd like to think that She Feels Pretty is the more logical horse of these 2 to win, but we all know what happened at Saratoga, the graveyard of favorites. It got that moniker for a reason. She Feels Pretty is undefeated in 2 tries at this distance, and Chad horses, I don't believe, have a win at the 1.8 mile, but they're very formidable. They finished 1-2 in the just a game. And Farbridge in the Bowling Green is stretching back out for Miguel Clement. And this race is a lot of it's going to be an emotional one for him because Farbridge was one of his dad's favorite horses. And Miguel, I was talking to him the other day, and he said that Farbridge was the last horse that his father ever saddled a couple of weeks before he passed on. And, Farbridge always shows up, a very consistent horse, very nearly won the last race with the third in the 3-horse photo at a distance he doesn't really like. So I think he's going to give a good showing of himself, but if I had to pick one of them to win, I would take She Feels Pretty.
Then I'll take Farbridge because I like the name better. Next question.
Dale's going with the emotional story there with Miguel Clement. That would certainly be pretty cool to see him win the Grade 2 Bowling Green later today at Saratoga. Okay, moving on. Our next question does come from a listener. It comes from Tom in St. Louis, and Tom has a question about last weekend's Great Lady M Stakes, where Sweet Azteca defended her title by defending heavily favored Copion. As the field came out of the top of the stretch, Copion, under jockey Kazushi Kimura, ranged up outside of Sweet Azteca, and jockey Juan Hernandez was aboard the winner, Sweet Azteca. He floated Copion about 10 wide, forcing that rival to shift back to the inside for the rest of the stretch run. And guys, Tom wants to know what the rule is for jockeys floating other horses out in this particular manner. How much latitude are they given before an inquiry would be posted? Dale, what's the rule?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The inconsistency of stewards is one of the biggest problems we have in this game. And I don't know if anybody's got a strict set of rules that they should have to go by. Some people say if it doesn't keep you from winning, and then they're going to leave you up. And others say if you just get out of your path and impede another horse, then you should be taken down. It's a good question that I don't think anybody can truly answer, but the inconsistency is a serious problem around the country, I think.
Well, you have, every horse is entitled to his spot during a race, and if the horse gets floated out by someone else, like Dale said, it's in the discretion of the stewards. And there is no set rule saying what you can and cannot do as far as impeding another horse. You can't impede another horse. Or there's going to be
bumping. There's not much. I haven't never seen a strict rules for stewards to go by.
Right. If they go out, send the horse out wide, I don't think there's not any like the Heiser rule with the six hits with the crop. There's no thing saying you can't float a horse out so far. That's up to the stewards, and that if someone does it, if someone makes a move where a horse is really pushed out 4, 5, 6 paths, usually there's probably going to be an inquiry and very likely a DQ if it was a horse that could have won.
Right. Well, Tim, this was a situation where, from what I could tell, and I watched the replay a few times, there was no contact made between Sweet Azteca, who was on the lead, and Copion, who was ranging up. It was just a move by Hernandez to float the horse wide as they were coming off of that turn into the stretch. So in this particular case, do we view this as just smart race riding, or should we view it as an infraction?
Well, if there's no contact, isn't it just smart race riding? I mean, that everybody's out there to win, and do whatever you can to win within the rules. And I think that was within the rules, right?
I think so.
Rules, though? I don't know. I didn't see the race, but I don't know if it's smart riding or just if he really did impede the horse and should have come down. All I know is that there's a lot of inconsistency from track to track, and it's frustrating. Whether you're a gambler or you're the horse that got impeded, that got left, didn't get put up.
How does that get rectified, Dale?
I don't know. It's been going on since the beginning of time, and I've heard a lot of people complain about it. It seems like it would be an easy fix. Like you have a rule book. If you're floating the horse out, you come down, or it's okay as long as you don't bump. But if a horse gets impeded, even if they weren't going to win, they get moved up. I don't know. I think it would give them a little bit too much discretion.
You know, it's interesting, though. I agree with you, Dale, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at and something that needs to be corrected. But, you know, in other sports, you look at the NFL, for example, how many times do we complain about officials, you know, and calls being different from one stadium to the next and 1 week to the next? Same thing with the NBA, right? What's a foul in the first quarter isn't necessarily a foul in crunch time in the fourth quarter. We hear about this in every other sport. So I don't know if there's – when you have human beings involved with making these split-second decisions, I don't know if it's quite as easy as it might sound to get it right.
Yeah, I will say that sometimes they'll they'll penalize a jockey. The other thing that happens in racing is if there's something goes on a race that the stewards don't like, they'll put them on they'll tell them they got to come to films the next day, and they all sit in a room together with the stewards and the jockeys that are involved in what the stewards didn't like, and they'll watch it and have them explain themselves, and they'll either fine them or give them days a lot of times, even if they haven't disqualified them the day before. If they think they're loose riding or something, they do come back and do something to them at times, but they'll make them go into the room. They have to come in early before the races and watch films of the races. So like when you played football, you wouldn't watch the pregame films.
Yeah, interesting question, Tom, and this is something we can spend a lot of time on down the road, but we appreciate that particular question. How about this one, guys? We're going to turn our attention to our friend Nick Zito for right or wrong, as we do every week here on I Ask the Answer, and this question comes from Shane in North Carolina. All right, guys, with the summer movie season underway, what horse or famous story of the thoroughbred industry is one that deserves a shot to be told on the big screen? That's the question that Shane poses. I say there are plenty of great choices here, but the movie title, Cody's Wish, should be the undisputed leader in this conversation, hands down. Am I right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale?
You're not wrong about that. That's a right answer. That was a great story, and it was a great human interest story, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was a movie someday.
And it's, Paul Halloran, who works for the Saratoga Special and formed a really close-knit bond with the Dorman family for, Cody Dorman, who Cody's Wish was named for. He just finished a book about it, and there's already been talk about the possibility of a movie being made. And I've talked to Kelly Dorman, the father, and he says that he thinks it's something that could happen. So I think you're definitely right on that. But there's others that could probably be made. How about a movie about American Pharoah, the first Triple Crown winner in 37 whatever years it was?
Yep.
Back in 2015, and how that kind of captivated the country when he was going for that elusive prize. That I think that would be kind of a cool movie, and something maybe Dwayne Lucas. I know there's being a documentary that was being worked on by the Hannigan brothers. And but a full-length motion picture on him, basketball coach to thoroughbred trainer, and what he did, and maybe the birth of I Ask the Answer. That would probably be in the bin for recycled movies in about 10 seconds, but I'd watch it.
I think it would do well. I really do. There's so many stories out there that could be told. The Randy Romero story has been told already in a couple of movies. That was a great story. You can go all the way back to Man of War that captivated the country. Won 30 races, only lost one. Coined a phrase. The word upset became when the underdog beats a favorite because upset's the only horse that ever beat him. I have a mental block here. What's Sugar Silly's name that retired undefeated?
Personal Ensign.
Personal Ensign. Yeah. She fractured her back leg as a 2-year-old and had pins and screws in her back ankle. And Randy told me a story loading her in the gate for her last race, and everyone wanted her to retire undefeated. He said he just wanted to hide somewhere, and she looked like she was dead beat at the 8th hole and ran down the Derby winner, winning colors, and nailed her on the wire by nose to end her career undefeated. And then there's so many characters in the game that would make good movies. What about a movie about Ronnie Turcotte? There's so many of them out there.
I like the Wayne Lucas angle, too. That was the other one I was going to go with, Timmy, instead of Cody's Wish. But I think Cody's Wish is the leader in this conversation. But a movie called Lucas, I think, would be really cool. I know I would pay to watch it.
Yeah, but the dynamic between him and Jeff before Jeff got hurt and after he got hurt, the whole thing would have been a great story.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always told people, if you can't go to a backstretch on a racetrack and find a good story, you're in the wrong business.
How about a movie called Romans?
From rags to riches, right?
No, I think the movie would be called The Romans Empire.
There's a lot of stories to be told.
If we did that, we'd have to decide on the stories, and that would probably determine what kind of rating the movie would get.
Yeah, it'd definitely be R-rated.
Definitely be R. Yeah. It's definitely not a PG.
You said before it's George Clooney who's playing you in the movie, right?
Obviously, since he's from Kentucky.
You might be better looking than Clooney, but he'll fill in.
Reasons.
Who's playing Tammy?
That's a good question. Now, that's one of a kind there. She might have to play herself.
Can Tammy sing?
Yeah, sometimes she sounds pretty good driving down the road when a good country song comes on.
Let's have Kristen Chenoweth play her.
That'd be good. We'll go with that.
I like it. The Romans Empire. Shane in North Carolina, appreciate that question. Keep them coming every single week, and we'll do our best to get these questions worked into the show. I know Dale and Tim would much rather answer your questions than mine, but I'm going to throw one more topic to them here at the end of the program. Guys, Thursday marked the anniversary of Suffolk Downs opening their doors for the first time. That happened in 1935. The East Boston track eventually closed in 2019. If you could bring back 3 tracks no longer in existence, which 3 are you choosing? Tim, take it first.
Well, I'm going to pick 3 that I never got to go to see. One would be Hollywood Park, which is now a football stadium. Another one would be Suffolk Downs in Massachusetts. I never got over there. And the other one it's sort of 2 in one. It's the fair circuit, the Great Barrington Fair, and the one at Northampton. I lied a little because I was at Great Barrington and I saw Zippy Chippy run there. I mean, the fairs are still there, but they don't have horse racing. They were just a lot of fun to go watch the races on those bull tracks and the tight turns. And, it was a throwback. And it was so much fun watching races there. So I take the 2 fairs, Suffolk and Hollywood Park.
Yeah, I think we've done this question before, but it's always a good one to talk about and think about the old racetracks. But it has to be Hialeah, number 1. Rockingham Park, I never saw it in its heyday, but it was always my father's favorite racetrack. So I think in its heyday before it burned down, they rebuilt it and tried to come back. It never came back to what it was. And Arlington, of course, I loved Arlington Park and had good success there. It was a shame that it's gone. Plus the tracks that Tim said, they were all good choices. I never went to the Northampton Fair or Barrington Fair, any of those things. I would have liked to have done that.
Yeah, he would have had a blast at those.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah, Northampton was on my top 3 only because it has a lot of sentimental meaning to me. When I wanted to be a track announcer before I started on radio, or just as I was starting, I went there with my mentor on radio, Pete Coulis, who was calling races up there every summer, and I got the chance to call a few races. First time I ever called races at any kind of live track, and that was pretty cool. And it's just such a unique atmosphere that I'd love to see Northampton come back. Hialeah, Dale, I agree. I never had the chance to go to Hialeah except for a few years back, and of course now they're not racing, but I wish I could have seen Hialeah in its heyday. And yeah, Rockingham, that was the other one I had on my list. Rockingham was a place that I went to many, many times, and the Saratoga of New Hampshire, is that what they called it?
Yep, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss.
My father loved it there. He said it was the best racetrack in America. I remember we would go there when I was a kid, but you couldn't go in the grandstand. So I just remember going to on Tuesday nights, they would set up a boxing ring outside the track kitchen, which set outside of the stable gate, so anybody could go in and eat there. and have boxing matches, and guys that were exercise boys and grooms and stuff would all sign up to box that night. I think they got a little prize money for showing up, and I remember going and watching that when I was little.
I wouldn't mind seeing Green Mountain come back either.
Yeah.
I never had I went there when it was dogs. I never had the chance to see it when it was horses.
Yeah, it was horses.
I was there as a kid then too, but I remember they had a little playground outside because you couldn't go in the grandstands there under 12, and we'd sit all the kids there were jockeys' kids or trainers, or even owners' kids. We'd all hang out there and play in the sandbox and swing on the swings and stuff. I never got to go in the grandstand when it was actually running, I don't believe.
Yeah, so many great racetracks no longer in existence, and again, kind of a neat thing to kick around here on the program. Guys, we're getting ready for our final point of the week. That's how we wrap up every edition of I Ask, They Answer. But before we do, last week, if you recall, we had our draft for the Showdown 4 competition. Dale is looking for the Triple Crown. He's won the last 2, and he got off to a fast start last week when Nitrogen finished second at Saratoga. Copion, my pick that we just talked about earlier on my team, ends up finishing second behind Sweet Azteca in California. So, Dale, you and I are tied at the top early. Tim has yet to get going, but he hasn't had a horse run yet. So, Timmy, good luck, my man. You got some catching up to do.
Well, my team is just biding its time. It's the best team that has been assembled, and I'm not worried about a thing.
In other words, he's used to being behind.
You guys just enjoy it while you can. If you don't win, if you don't finish first, you finish last. So.
Well, you can see our teams and you can see the scoring every single week updated on our website, horseracingradio.net. Let us know who you think has the best team. If it's going to be me, Tim, or Dale, it's going to walk away with the top prize after the Breeders' Cup in November. You can check that out on our site and comment on our social media pages. Time now to wrap up the show as we do every week. It's time for the final point of the week. Tim Wilkin, kick us off.
Opening day at Saratoga on Thursday, when I was leaving the track, I was detained because we had one whopper of a rainstorm. It looked like gale-force winds, hail, all kinds of rain. And all the years I've been coming up here, I cannot remember a storm that seemed that violent. And some of the remnants I saw this morning over at Bill Mott's barn, a big maple tree that's been sitting in front of his office for years and years and years, was uprooted and nearly, and some of it rested on top of his office. It's amazing that none of it smashed through the roof of of Bill's office or of a pony barn, pony barn right next to it. Everyone was very lucky that no one got hurt, but it just showed you the force of nature that ran through here on opening day after the races.
There was some storm yesterday. It was hailing. It was wind was blowing. It only lasted 30 minutes and it was gone.
40. I timed it.
Poured. But anyway, I would. It's going to sound like a commercial. But I just want to make sure people are paying attention to Kentucky racing at Ellis Park. I know we got Saratoga going on and we talk about it all the time, but that quality hasn't dropped off at all from Churchill Downs to Ellis Park. Make sure you're watching and playing over at Henderson, Kentucky.
Very nice, Dale. The people in Kentucky.
A little commercial.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should work for the Chamber of Commerce.
I might send them a bill. But I work for the show, so the show will get the money.
There you go.
There we go. Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, I Ask, They Answer. We're back next week with a whole new edition of the show. Guys, appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend. Dale, good luck with all those runners.
All right. Talk to you all later. Thanks.
See y'all. Bye-bye.
If you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim discuss, told you what to do. Just email the show, Mike at horseracingradio.net. And we'll get it worked into the program as soon as we can, or you can post it on our social media pages at HRRN on X, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. I Ask, They Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with more and the answer to this week's impossible trivia question next. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
All over America, people are taking the National Radon Test. Have you? Excuse me, have you heard of radon?
Is that a gas?
Is it something that comes up out the ground or something?
It's like poison gas.
Something dangerous that you're supposed to check on to make sure it's not in your home.
Now it's your turn. Answer true or false. Radon is a radioactive gas. True. Radon is a radioactive gas. True or false? The Office of the Surgeon General recommends that all homes be tested for radon. True, your home should be tested.
I didn't know that, no.
True or false? Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. True.
True, I didn't know that.
Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. Answer true or false. Homes with radon problems can be fixed. True. Homes with radon problems can be fixed.
So what do you do about it? I'm going to dial the number and call.
1-800-SOS-RADON.
If I don't take care of it, nobody else will.
Keep your family safe from radon. Call now.
1-800-SOS-RADON.
Kids, they're just different than us. They have no inhibitions, consider silverware optional, and can find fun anywhere. And when kids get really sick, they're different than us too. Until now, children diagnosed with blood cancer have been treated like many adults. Not anymore. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society proudly introduces the Dare to Dream Project, transforming treatment and care through advocacy, education, and the largest global clinical trial for kids with blood cancer. For the first time, a specific treatment can be matched to a specific type of cancer in a specific child. It'll be the biggest medical advancement for little patients in history. Dare to dream with us. Support the Dare to Dream Project and all the work that the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society does at LLS.org.
In sitcoms, when someone has a problem, they just blurt it out and move on.
Well, I lost my job and my parakeet is missing. How was your day?
But the real world is different. Managing life's challenges can be overwhelming. So, what do? We get support. The Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council have mental health resources available for you at loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. See how much further you can go when you take care of your mental health.
Check out the all-new horseracingradio.net. All the same great horse racing radio content in a new, easy-to-use design. Listen to all of our shows streaming live or access the replays anytime. See our schedule, sign up for our newsletter, download our latest podcasts, and so much more. It's all on our website at horseracingradio.net. That's horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Rushing Fall and Sister Charlie are moving together outside of Mitchell Road. Oh, Marique is going to come wide. Secret Message is going to cut the corner. They're into the stretch. Rushing Fall gets first run. Sister Charlie comes after her. They're 1-2. Oh, Marique is finishing in the center of the course. It's Sister Charlie, Rushing Fall, and Oh, Marique. The Chad Brown runners 1-2-3 coming down to the line. And it's going to be Sister Charlie and the Diana. She won it by 2.5 lengths over Rushing Fall. Oh, Marique was third, and Secret Message was fourth, and a final time of 1:47.93.
That's Larry Colmus with the call of the 2019 running of the Diana, won by Sister Charlie, trained by Chad Brown. A second consecutive win in the race for Sister Charlie. As a matter of fact, the last two horses to pull off consecutive wins in the Diana, both trained by Chad Brown, which is no surprise considering the fact that he has won the race an unprecedented 9 times. I visited with Chad earlier in the program. If you missed that conversation, head back to the website, horseracingradio.net, after we finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can listen to the podcast. You can also do that, too, on every podcast platform. A reminder that you can receive a wrap-up of the day's biggest stories in racing with free Blood Horse Daily. You can do that delivered to your inbox or on the Blood Horse Daily app, and you'll always be in touch with the latest in racing, breeding, and sales with the industry's most widely read newsletter. You can go to bloodhorse.com/daily to sign up for your free account, or look for Blood Horse Daily in the app and Play Store. Well, I gave you the impossible trivia question a few times throughout today's show. Lee Delapina has the answer.
Thank you, Mike. What Hall of Fame jockey is the only rider to win the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont on 3 different horses in 3 different years? That was Eddie Arcaro. He won the Derby 5 times, the Preakness and the Belmont 6 times each, and he won the Triple Crown twice on Whirlaway in 1941 and Citation in 1948.
How about that one? Did you get it right? Good for you. We'll be back next week with another impossible trivia question here on the Equine Forum so you can test your knowledge against Lee Della Pina and his questions he comes up with for you every single week. How about that segment with Dale and Tim? Some different things in there. I know Dale, sometimes gets discouraged with some of the questions I come up with, but there's one thing for sure. He loves the questions that our listeners come up with. So if you have a question, as I told you, you know what to do. Get a hold of us, and we'll get it worked into the program if we do get some time to do so. The movie question was kind of interesting. I still say Cody's Wish is the way to go there. And Tim said, maybe there is something in the works that would be kind of cool to see. I think it's tailor-made for the big screen. All right, my thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible here this morning, including Vance Hanson with the TwinSpires Triple Play, Kurt Becker with his Stroll Through Racing History, Dale and Tim in the previous segment, Mike Beer from the Daily Racing Forum, Chad Brown, all part of the show here this morning. Again, if you missed any portion, check out the podcast on our website and on every podcast platform. Been a lot of fun. 3 hours down. We'll do it all over again next week. Thanks for joining me. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks to Lee Della Pina in our Lexington studio and to Chauncey for handling all of our social media. We'll talk to you next week. Go Steelers.